laying here. So let me hit some buttons for you and me and get rid of this top screen and say hello, everybody out there. Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It is, of course, well, not quite the last day of March. We got one more day, but we are the second to last. It's March 30th, 2024. We're, tomorrow's Easter, and then...
Yep.
I guess it's I guess it is a rarity, I would say, that it's Easter followed by April Fools, because that's an interesting combination of days in a row. Because April 1st then. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's funny.
Yeah. So, be ready for the next couple of days. It'll be interesting. I mean,
my week's gonna be planning for the eclipse, which I'm going to see next Monday. By the way, I won't be here next Saturday. Just so you know.
I'll have to see if Momo's around, or probably fish around for some extra people. If not, which I can do. I'll just remember to. Yeah. So, anyway, hope everybody's having a good weekend. Worm was just talking to me about their stream earlier. How otherwise, how's your week been overall?
Good, I guess. I don't know. I actually spend a lot of time messing around with the item list for
Wednesday.
Queen.
Pathfinder's King of Items.
Yeah. So honestly, yeah. The big thing I would have an issue with is recording it during the game, because I'm more focusing on taking notes. So I'm glad Joe's doing that. But honestly, afterwards I can go through and
I think it's interesting that this is a thing that maybe I can consider working on. It was something I don't consider treasure for encounters, because a lot of published adventures like to give you potions and scrolls, and it makes sense because like minor type items and things like that are good small rewards, and they even do that in other editions and stuff like that. But you can usually have maybe a little bit more something in minor items, that they don't have to all be like, oops, it's another. Because how many healing potions do you take? 1 billion of them? It was ridiculous.
Yeah, so there were 44 in the group item pool.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I'm like, oh, I'll take 20, I'll take half of them. And I looked, and I was like, I apparently already had, like 10. So I now have like 30 potions. Just me.
And, like, yes, you're probably not going to be taking those during combat, but it is we're going to do multiple combats, we're going to be battling for a while, prevent the healers from using their healing abilities, That's really the point of it.
Yeah. Honestly, if you want to, like, help things out, are there items in game, are there potions that restore spell slots?
There are items, but they're going to be expensive.
Because my thought is you could probably give some potions just to help the spellcasters, because they're the ones we're waiting on all the time. They're the ones who run out of spells and like, well, we have to wait.
Well, it's at that level where you have that issue, where you're getting to spellcasters are getting really decent spells, but they have a limited supply of them. Like, give another, like, 4 levels, and you probably won't have that problem very much. Granted, they will run out of spells more than, it's like, you and Joe don't really have to worry about running out of stuff a lot, because it's sort of like the fighter doesn't have to worry about running out of stuff except to, like, maybe hit points, Yeah,
so hit points is a resource, and then I have my shape-shifting stuff, which is a number of minutes, but, like, again, 1 minute is 10 rounds of combat, so... Which
is normally a combat. And if you have
and the one I changed to is really only helpful in combat. Like the other one, I could do like the scent thing, which I was keeping track of like time a little bit. But like now I don't have the scent thing anymore. By the way,
anything that is a resource that gives you more than 5 minutes of time, and you spend it in minutes per round, and you activate it in combat, you are probably never going to run out of, because traditionally you're not going to go more than 5 actually challenging combats before you decide to rest anyway,
Yeah, and I have 10 of those.
Yeah, so it's a resource you're kind of at the point you're probably not going to run out. It's kind of like also like Joe has a lot of rounds of raging,
Yeah. I have 9 rounds of one ability that I took with the feet. but that's probably the most limited resource I have.
Again, like, given under 4 rounds, a bard around 12th level has like 20 to 30 rounds of performance. You are not going to run out unless you do a lot of like the shenanigans for builds to use multiple bardic performance at once, which is really a cool builds and like spells and kind of stuff. But you're literally trying to aim for that rather than anything else, to a degree.
And then you pick up things to probably give you more.
Yeah, and so it's like, and at that point in time, it's like, yeah, you get to this point where resources are kind of hard to run out of. Yeah, and it's just unfortunately like for 7th to 8th level, it kind of can be run out from useful spells for a lot of spellcasters, especially unfortunately like sorcerers and wizards and clerics, because they choose them ahead of time. And I think it was the entire thing that Momo and Lightning both had prepared different sets of spells because they didn't think that you were going into the combat kind of thing. Well, I think you rested and switched, but then they were using all of them during a lot of those combats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, resource management. That's not what we're talking about today when it comes to deeper discussion. We will have a topic that will be related to some of the things that we've been handling here, but I guess we should get into our docket of news, because there have been a bunch of interesting things to talk about today. So we did hit something with Wizards that wasn't bad, and it's not their fault, and it's still something that weird, it's bad but not their fault bad, which is kind of unusual for Wizards, you know? So I'll start with this, and I'll provide their statement, which is the only thing they've said so far, and then I've got the Dicebreakers article about this, because I was going to try to rely on their statement, but their statement says jack diddly. So the entire thing is, it appears that there was this person, Faye Dalton, don't know about them, they've suspended work with them, but apparently there was plagiarism. That it was something from Cyberpunk 2020 art. And it was being used at Murders of Karlov Manor. Trouble in Pairs.
All their official thing says is we're suspending work.
We looked into the integrity. So again, this is an accusation. You know, we can't say anything about the artist yet. It'll probably have some kind of investigation from someone, but the sounds of it is Magic has made up their mind of it's just wash your hands of it regardless kind of thing, which a lot of corporations do that anyway. It's sort of like, well, you've been blamed, goodbye.
It's the easiest thing to do, because like at that, the problem is because of the way people a lot of people will go after someone once they've been accused. There's actually this thing where like people who are what is it called, acquitted of like crimes, basically spend their whole life under scrutiny because so many people just don't believe them. There's this phenomenon among people where it's like, once you're blamed for something bigger, no one will ever believe that you're not. And that's why a lot of companies have this policy, because it's actually too much work to continue working with someone with that kind of tarnished reputation, whether or not it's justified. So it does suck if he's innocent, but you know. Yeah.
Well, it seems as though, again, it's that one thing that apparently Danto Giacola, the original artist of the 2020 Cyberpunk 2020 novel The Ravagers, compared this Mohawk figure, if you're looking at the Dicebreakers article, to their art. It's close enough, but not close enough that a lawyer might need to be copied. You know, it's sort of like one of those things is, you can tell it's very close, but it's like one of those ones that's not like such an open and shut case that it'd be an easy trial. And so it's not something that, you know, a lot of these little things, not good, but it does kind of take a step back that, like, you know...
Okay, I can see it. At first I was going to say, no way, because I looked at the faces, but then I saw everything else. because he basically, it looks like he changed the face, put on a jacket, and that was about it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you just look up the Ravagers cyberpunk novel. You should be able to see the cover yourself if you want to look at it. So yeah. This continued a little bit with other people diving into other pieces of artwork from Dalton, but the only thing that was discovered was in the full illustration of Troubles of Pairs, there was 2 other instances of what looked to be stolen art within it. So they broke down the art.
Welcome, new citizen of the Empire.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
prime, please.
I was like, I don't see the connection for like when I stared at it for a second, and then I kept looking. Wait a second.
Yes, it's so yeah. It's just been a thing that there's been a couple of instances of stuff like this apparently, and it does sound like Wizards has been taking this.
Oh no!
stance.
Okay, I see now. No, so I thought it was between the 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
In the first picture. No, that was his picture. And if you follow the link, you can see the person, and yeah, okay, so that takes the head.
Oh,
Okay.
wow, yeah, I can see. Oh, because it's mirrored. They mirrored the Trouble in Pairs, and like if you follow the link in the Dicebreakers article to the Reddit one, they show that so close. Wow. Yeah, that is. And it's isn't it the same background too, to a degree?
Oh yeah, it is. Well, it's like small little edits, like things are like smoothed over, but it's otherwise like it's got some very similar vibes to it.
Yeah, the background has similar vibes to it, and it's just got that extra character in front too to block a lot of it.
Yeah. Who looks like, again, they were kind of like mirrored and just edited of the other character anyway.
Jesus, that is pretty.
Yeah, so they added the jacket and stuff. But basically just copied the face. I mean, part of me's just like, why would you do something like that? It seems like way too. I mean, you have to. I guess you could just add on a jacket and stuff. Who knows? Maybe the jacket's stolen from someone else. You know?
Yeah,
that's weird. Huh. No, but it's like. Part of me is also like, here's another thing though too. Sometimes people can take inspiration from things, and that's why like I personally have this idea where it's all like, if it's completely drawn from hand and just copying someone else's work, but actually put in the effort to draw it yourself, that could be okay. I'm someone who thinks that, but I don't think legally that's how that works.
I think
you can copyright a character.
What you are saying can work to a degree at times. Okay?
Yeah.
It's situational. Yeah. It depends on what you're using it for, and it depends on how closely you're actually copying it. Like, tracing it is bad. But if you were to hand draw it, you know, and have your own version of it, there are going to be differences between your style and that style enough for it to probably be a transformative thing.
But the
this is very, very close. This is like tracing close.
Shadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, it looks like you started with it and then did your own art on top of it.
Yes.
To just save work.
Yeah. It does feel a lot like that.
The other person honestly also looks kind of lazily done. It looks like the other person flipped, put in front, and then changed the face. And then added a jacket. That's what I thought the initial copying was. I thought they were comparing the two, but no, like it's... Yeah, so... Apparently bandages on the head might also be taken from someone else's work.
Yeah, there's like there's a couple of things that are like just not good apparently.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can see why they'd suspend over this. Like, there's definitely like this guy could potentially like fight for this, but
again,
I can see why.
I think the thing is, there's enough here that is transformative in a sense that it would be not impossible, but difficult to legally actually fight this in court. I think that's what happens with a lot of like Like, copyright, it's a hard thing, honestly.
Yeah.
Actually in court.
I mean, yeah, no, honestly, the problem is copyright, to fight a copyright claim is actually very hard. It's very much in favor of the person submitting the claim.
Yeah. But still, nonetheless, they still have to be able to, like, show enough. And this is pretty close, but again, it's also expensive. So it sounds like the person was the original artist wouldn't want to go to court over this kind of thing, because it's a lot of money, and they didn't feel...
It depends on how much they get paid from Wizards, but...
Well, that's what I mean, is the original artist, rather than the person that did the art. So the original artist has to file...
attacking their integrity is probably more important to the artist.
Yes, because they're like, hey, you did this. Again, they have that statement that they had on Facebook of not speechless enough to contact a lawyer, copyright infringement. See, that's the thing. And I think that's the thing, is they're like, it's that thought of, I don't have the money, time, and this doesn't feel like important enough for me to actually go to court over to you, but I have to point it out so everybody knows what you've done. And Wizards isn't working with them anymore at this point in time. So, yeah, and I can understand why. Like, when we look at this and really look at it, it's like, wow. Like, the other little instances in the picture, I'm a little bit like, okay, the bandana, the hand, but the figure itself, that comparison is pretty crazy.
Yep. Okay. Oh, I mean, maybe we'll see what happens. I don't know if the guys made a comment back or anything, but...
There might be some more. So I wanted to combine these two things together, because there was... I wanted to talk about the Outlaws of Thunder Junction mechanics just a little bit for Magic, just to mention them, because I do like mentioning them for the new sets. But also, I wouldn't have realized it, because I haven't really looked at the card spoilers, and probably wasn't going to for, like, weeks. Dicebreakers just let us know that, you know what? At least the card developers, the people that make these, within Wizards, I'm so glad they have a sense of humor. So we'll start with that before we talk about mechanics, because there's a Looney Tunes reference in Outlaws. They have a coyote and a roadrunner. And it's kind of silly. And the art matches each other because the coyote is chasing the roadrunner. If you go to the bottom of the Dicebreakers article, you can see how they connect together. And I'm really, it's a funny thing. It's definitely like Wile E. Coyote versus the roadrunner, but like actual
like
creature.
This is funny.
Yeah, see, this is nice little references. It's a coyote chasing a roadrunner. If you go, you can switch the images at the bottom between the two of them.
Oh, there it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm. And you can see the tail feathers. Yeah, that go.
You can see the tail feathers in the smoke. Yep.
No, it's an adorable little thing. There are people in Wizards that make me still be happy with Wizards to a degree. It's the people that do this kind of stuff.
See, and to be fair, like, I think saying, oh, Wizards is bad for this plagiarism thing is actually, I think, not where you want to go. Because they're going out of their way to hire artists to make their art. Basically, people saying, oh, they're the bad ones, is basically saying they should stop doing this. When in reality, it's like, you can only vet people so much, People get away with a lot, and they cut ties with people when it's needed. So I think they're handling this fine. They made their comment. They're not working with him. Cool. But yeah, no, this Roadrunner Coyote thing, love it.
Oh my god. God, this set is just... I saw some of their links they had here. I really haven't looked at them. They have Bonnie Paw Clear Cutter, which is a giant. It's Paul Bunyan with a blue cow in the background. A Lone Shark, which is actually a shark. And a card that's a Holy Cow, which is just an Angel Ox. I mean, I really have to look at this set now closely after today, because is this going to be another Neon Dynasty for numbers of silliness? I'm just curious. But
what does protection from coyotes mean?
It means that protection, if something has protection from a type of source, it means that it cannot be targeted, damaged, or destroyed by that source.
Yeah. So the Roadrunner has protection from coyotes. Yeah. That's just an odd. Any other creature type is a coyote.
Yep. It's just specifically targeting. I guess there are some more coyotes, but still. I'm really going to have to look at Outlaws set thing. So, getting back to actual mechanics. They do have...
Actually, I do want to make a joke. So, something I heard one time with the Roadrunner Coyote thing from Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the coyote animations, the coyote never speaks. And it's revealed at some point that he made a vow of silence to, never speak until he catches the Roadrunner.
Mm-hmm.
But people have also pointed out that in Bugs Bunny cartoons, when the coyote shows up, he does speak.
Mm.
Implying that he does at some point catch the Roadrunner. That's a fun little, theory that people have come up with.
So first off, we're getting a new subgroup noun that's going to be used in the set, Outlaw, which they define that outlaws are of the following creature types: assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. So any of those creature types would count as an outlaw for things. So it's a new, type above types, which we get those occasionally. Those aren't... It's not a very common thing, but it is there occasionally. So that's interesting. We have a new rules term, committing a crime. Targeting opponents, anything they control. Sure. I'll link the... I forgot to do that. Here we go. Oh, I forgot to do that. That's their article.
Okay.
So it's a range of actions. Targeting opponent, anything they control, and/or cards in their graveyards is a crime. So I guess just harassing someone in their cards counts as a crime. A spree, which is an interesting one, because we've had similar abilities to this one. It is basically a modular card where you choose one or more of the additional costs, effectively. So, they show the card Final Showdown. It says it's 1 white mana, but it's really 1 white and 1 colorless, because I guess technically speaking, to use the spree ability.
Oh.
Because it's +1 for the first ability, +1 for the second ability, plus 3 colorless and 2 white for the last one.
Okay, so you need the white to play it, and then another of any to cast. So basically, technically casts 2 always, but
yeah. Well, it's sort of like you're still technically casting 1 spell, but it can have multiple abilities depending on how much of the mana spree you spend, effectively.
Yep.
And the thing about this is, there is the possibility that someone might not pay the spree cost. Because sometimes just casting a spell can have a positive effect on your board. So I could see just paying the white and casting that and not paying the spree at all. I'm curious if you can do that, though. You must choose 1 or more modes as you cast a spell with spree.
It doesn't say you must. It says choose 1 or more additional costs.
Well, it says in the description below there, each mode includes an additional cost that must be paid to cast the spell. You must choose 1 or more modes you cast with spree, but no single mode can be chosen more than once. If you cast... Because this is, I guess, rules clarification. If you cast a spell with spree without paying its mana cost, you must still choose 1 or more modes and pay the additional mana. The mana cost is covered, though, so at least you'll enjoy a nice discount. Interesting. So you do have to pay for at least 1.
Okay, so you have to actually cast them.
But it does give you the choice of, this one it's 3 different choices.
Oh, yeah, but it says choose 1 or more, so you can actually cast all 3 if you have the mana.
Yeah. All creatures lose their ability, then choose a creature that's indestructible, and then destroy all creatures. Hey, destroy doesn't kill something that's indestructible, so, yeah. And because you could do it in order, You can have everything lose all their abilities. One creature of your choice become indestructible, and then you destroy everything. And I think that would be the point of spending all the mana for that. So you basically wipe the board and have one creature left.
Yep. It's expensive, but you can do it.
It looks like they have Mount and Saddle as abilities. Mount is a thing on creatures. It's basically like they did with vehicles. It's creatures that a creature can have something on it. And apparently they gain bonuses. You're saddled by a creature, and I guess the Mount ability, which goes along with it, also means it also triggers some stuff along with it. I'm guessing. Saddle 1. As saddle ability resolves, Mount becomes saddled at the end of turn. This doesn't mean anything, but another ability to card refers to a Mount being saddled. Many Mounts have similar triggers. Okay. Huh. This is one I'd probably want to dive into a little bit more. Saddle's an activate ability you play on as a sorcery, meaning you do it in your main phase by tapping any number of untapped creature control with the amount with this saddle. So I guess you do need a creature that's a Mount and a creature that's a saddle? Or no. You just needed something. It has the saddle ability. The Mount is the creature type. Okay. Creature types Mount, and they have the saddle ability on them. Gotcha. Now I'm understanding it more. God, they sometimes word this stuff, and it just takes a minute. Okay, and the saddle ability is you have to tap any number of creatures with a power of their saddle number or more, and the Mount becomes saddled.
Okay, so you basically tap them, meaning they can't act that turn, basically.
You're basically
and then
using other creatures to ride these Mounts and give them additional bonuses.
And then so whenever it's attacked while whenever it attacks while saddled, it gains first strike until the end of the turn's card one. So you tap it, and then it's saddled, and then you can attack. Okay.
Yeah, well, we would tap another creature to add to it, basically.
Yeah. You tap another. Yeah, that's what I mean. You tap another creature. I've played Magic the Gathering once, so I now know a tiny bit more about this.
Like, Gurtog, the giant, legendary frog horror, only needs a saddle of 1, so you only need, a tiny creature to activate its bonus. But it looks like, saddling it with bigger creatures gives better bonuses, effectively.
Well, you can also tap multiple smaller creatures.
That's true. You
can
tap
amount of other creatures you control with a total power of 2.
That's true. So you can tap a whole lot of creatures to activate, a super Mount ability. Interesting.
Yeah.
There's a Plot ability, which you may pay the cost, exile this card from your hand, cast as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost. So this is an interesting one, because I guess Plot is, I cast a spell but put it into exile, and then I can, on my turn, because it's sorcery, use it on any of my turns in the future. So you, set it up and, I'm going to be doing this at some point in time. You don't know when. But I've set it up.
And so it's only able to be targeted if something you target an exile card, basically.
Or I guess when you finally cast it for things like Counterspell. So it's that eventually you can be done something with it.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, since it's exiled, that's where it goes. It is the exile pile.
Yeah,
technically.
There's not a lot of stuff to target.
Exile
stuff. Yeah. It's very rare, but some occur. They apparently have these bounty cards that are in their commander decks. I don't know what these. And I guess it's just an option for playing to use these bounties as just a special thing that if you bought the commander decks, you could have them and use them. All players have a shared bounty deck, which consists of 6 of the 12 total bounty cards. The bounty deck uses no more than 1 of any particular bounty card. After all, bounties begin on the starting player's 3rd turn. Gives the fugitive a sporting chance. Each bounty card describes the condition which the players may capture them and claim the reward. Only players whose turn it is can claim the reward. Only one more reward can be claimed per turn. There are 4 different reward levels for bounties. Each bounty uses the same reward chart. If you claim reward on your turn that the bounty was first offered, you create a treasure token, level 1 reward. If it goes unclaimed at the end of the turn, reward increases until a maximum reward is offered at 2 treasure tokens and a card. Okay, so it's just an extra little thing that if you want to play with them and you got the commander decks, it's another little extra mode on the game. Like
yeah, it's kind of like a new game mode with like a little bit of extra.
Plane Shift does this too, where it's got this special deck of planar cards that give effect to everybody. So it's another one of something like that. So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of a neat way to make the game a little bit different without, like, affecting tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, no. This would be definitely a little more of a mini game. It is coming with the commander decks, but I could assume you could play with any format as well. But it's a more casual thing. Things like Plane Shift, Arch Enemy, Bounties. There's a couple more like little game modes you can add on top to normal Magic type games that are they're casual stuff. Alright, but that's the mechanics. They look interesting. I think, they're doing a good job thematically. I do want to look at the cards, maybe in a week or two, when we get because I don't know when they're exactly coming out, but the full list should be out relatively soon. Around I'm going to look up when it's coming out. Outlaws of Thunder Junction, release date. Thank you, Google. April 19th. So, yeah, in a couple of weeks we should have the full list. I'll take a look at the full list, and, I'll let people know what I think about it. Because if it's another Neon Dynasty, like, if it's capturing some of that spirit that Kamigawa Neon Dynasty did, and it's just a fun set, I can say that, I'm going to take a look. So, we do have something free. That's now available as of 4 days ago. I think we mentioned this was going to go up free, but I wanted to follow up when we were talking about last week that the Descent into the Lost Caverns of Sochikath, you can get it for free. We mentioned it was going to be. There's the link to get your free version of it if you have a D&D Beyond account. Again, I think that's just I think I can claim it. I have an account. Can I? Yes, I can because I have an account. I don't pay for anything, but I have an account.
Yeah, I think I have an account too. Cool. Now.
You have to see it in D&D Beyond. That's the only thing. I mean, it's fine.
Oh yeah, I made an account to get the playtest stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I made one like years and years ago when D&D Beyond first came out. I've never paid for it. I've just had the normal account. So. Yep. So, yep, if you want to check it out, look into running it or anything like that, hey, there you go. Free content. Anyway. So this is an interesting one because it both involves tabletop and video games and everybody's favorite group which bought out a lot of things and then it didn't go well for them. Embracer, who bought a lot of stuff and looked like they were going to do stuff, who are the people that technically bought out. It is, I'm going to remember the name of the company. Give me a second here. They bought Asmodee. And Asmodee, remember, has a lot of subsidiaries of a lot of other smaller gaming companies. So we're talking about the people that have a big stake in the tabletop industry in like your AA kind of thing, I don't think there really is a AAA tabletop group except maybe Wizards, a lot of AA kind of that are big, but they aren't goddamn Wizards. Nothing holds a candle.
I think I'd consider Paizo AAA.
They might have reached that now. They've always been in that close space to it, so they are in a location where I could start considering them that. But they've worked hard to get there, I think, in building their company. So
there are some big ones, but yeah, I feel like most other ones would be AA.
It seems like
there's some other AAA that are like Modifius and stuff. I think Modifius would also be AAA.
There are a couple other companies that I might consider a AAA, but there are companies that we don't talk about as much because they just kind of put their head down and do a lot of things.
Yeah.
There's one group that I can't remember their name off the top of my head, and someone might correct me, but they do a lot of family-friendly, more children-style games. I mean, a lot of really high-quality ones that you definitely have heard about, and they're putting a lot out in the course of the year. They're doing a lot of material, and yeah, I would put them up there. But again, like, they're family-friendly stuff, and sort of that kind of, it's not necessarily we're outside of our wheelhouse, but a lot of that stuff is relatively simple, not necessarily not fun, but we talk about like interesting, weird stuff more than just this is just a fun standard game,
Yeah.
I do try to talk about those occasionally. But anyway, I put up the Dicebreakers article that apparently Embracer is looking at Asmodee as something that is very important, and Catan, the company that does Catan and stuff like that, Catan. Catan.
Catan?
I did say it incorrectly there, and I realized I said it incorrectly, but I wasn't going to correct myself until you did. I knew it was wrong, and I'm like,
I actually my brain actually couldn't figure out what you meant for a second.
I was like, what the hell did I say? But I just walked away from it. We just took a walk away. I'm like, you know what? We're just going with that. Mm-hmm. So like,
derived from exploding kitties.
Yeah. So those are technically, I think, 3 different subgroups within there. Ticket to Ride is Days of Wonder. Catan is the Catan group, and Exploding Kitties, I don't remember who does them, but they're all under Asmodee. They're the blanket group of Asmodee with their small like sub things that they've bought out, basically. What they did before they were bought out by Embracer. So they are looking very highly to that, and I guess leveraging on tabletop, because maybe that's a little bit more cost-effective than video games, because they did, as of 2 days ago, which I hadn't heard about, sold off Gearbox, the Borderland people, to Take-Two Interactive, which I didn't even know Embracer had bought up Gearbox, because I always thought, well, I knew Gearbox worked with Take-Two, because Take-Two was the people that published Borderlands, I thought. But I didn't know Embracer owned Gearbox until just now. I probably heard about that, but I forgot about it. But apparently they've been selling off a lot of these bigger companies. I guess at least Take-Two is, the people that have been involved with Borderlands, so, like, they might, keep up with more of that stuff. I don't know if it's going to be good or not, That's a conversation for today. I've had opinions about the Borderlands things. I really like Borderlands 2, I'm going to say. So that was a positive thing. I just think they went downhill after that. So maybe they can come back up. But apparently they went into $1.4 billion in debt, which is a large thing. So, yeah. Apparently, going and sticking with things that are maybe like low investment, higher return, or like maybe not even higher return, but like standard return. Like it's just simple and keeps like, we can spend this lower amount of money and earn some profit, but we don't have to have like these huge margins. Like, I gotta be honest, board games, you don't really spend a lot to advertise them. They kind of just sell themselves, usually with big names and stuff.
Yeah, because like board games and like even tabletop RPGs are very much word of mouth, conventions, small time like stores and stuff. Like that's where you get most of your advertisements. People want to experience the game or know, like, hear someone talk about it that they trust, because board games are generally a little bit expensive, and you're something that you're probably going to want to spend a lot of time on.
Yeah, and
So,
again, it's a physical thing, so it's probably like got a pretty decent like production to selling point difference, too. So I can understand, doubling down on something that might be a standard thing to be a profitable thing within your group, despite all this, might be decent. And it's kind of interesting to see that because they've divested from a lot of the other stuff they did, and people were like, oh, they're going to get rid of something like Asmodee. But no, they are basically saying, yeah, no, like, I think it's not a bad business move, honestly, to have something that's just going to be standard and do a good job, you know?
Yeah. Asmodee also does Small World.
Because they also have things like Fantasy Flight under them. God.
Yeah.
Looking up
the Fantasy Flight is under Asmodee, which is under Embracer, which is...
Asmodee Digital sub companies. Okay. Here we go. I will give you subsidiaries: Access, Icynine, Asmodee Deutschland, Atomic Mass Games, Bresware Studios, Catan Studios, Days of Wonder, Edge Entertainment, Exploding Kittens. Okay, that's also through Fantasy Flight Games, Gamenetic, Lilliblood. I'm not probably pronouncing that right. Lookout Games, Mixlore, Pearl Games, Plan B Games, Rebel Studios, Repose Studios, Space Cows, Space Cowboys, The Green Board Games Co., Unexpected Games, Z-Man Games, and Zygomatic Games. Oh. Who has Come On, then? I thought Come On was also under them, but maybe Come On's it's still its own thing. Or they could have been there and broken away, too.
You know, I feel like it should be a law that companies should... like, the top-level companies need to publish flowcharts of all the companies they own. It's like, this is owned by
subsidiaries.
This, owned by this, which is... Yeah, subsidiaries. Like, flowcharts of all subsidiaries. Where it's like, this is to this, and then these guys control these, and then these ones control these, and these ones control these.
Subsidiaries are a mess, definitely.
I mean, part of me is just all like, I understand... So... From a business perspective, I understand the concept of subsidiaries. People like a name they can recognize, so just merging it in with yours when you buy it out is actually bad to continue the products. But it's also just very confusing when you have this is just a subset of this, which is a subset of this, which is a subset of this, which is, you know.
And you have to think that Asmodee is now a subset of Embracer. You know,
yeah.
It's like it's a tabletop division within Embracer.
Yeah.
Look, you know, I am honestly sad that Embracer's gone this bad, that they've lost a lot of employees, things have gone terrible for them. They did a big bet, and it failed horribly, you know? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, companies do that. I'm more sad for the employees that lost their jobs, because a lot did. But, as someone in the tabletop industry... I'm not necessarily for or against Asmodee being sold off. I don't really care as long as they produce stuff. You know, Catan, Days of Wonder, Exploding Kittens. I love how they call it Ticket to Ride in the thing when it's Days of Wonder is the company that makes it. The other two are named after the games that are their main games. I know this, but it's such a silly thing, you know, in the article here.
That's so weird. Embracer Group, so they own Coffee Game, or like the coffee, or not coffee, why did I say coffee? They own Gearbox, the video games. Now they own Asmodee, which is board games.
As of 2 days, they don't own Gearbox. 2 days ago.
Oh, sorry.
On March 28th, they announced the... Well, I guess technically they still own it, but they've announced that they're selling it to Take-Two. As of 2 days ago.
I'm just looking at their website of what they own.
Yeah.
They also own Dark Horse Media, which is a graphic novel company.
Oh God, I didn't know they owned Dark Horse.
Yeah, I'm looking at their website right now.
Man,
they own THQ Nordic. Easy Brain. I feel like I've heard that before.
Well, THQ Nordic is understandable. That's like that went through a lot of shit because they kind of fell apart and all that stuff. So I'm guessing what was left was bought up by Embracer eventually.
Okay, so most of the stuff they have is. Most of the stuff they have are video games. But then they have those two, Dark Horse and Asmodee.
Yeah. If they didn't mention Saber Interactive, I'm assuming the sale ended for that one because they sold that off last month, and then this month they've now sold off Gearbox, but I guess it's technically not sold yet. It's one of those things of like, we are in the midst of selling it. So that's a lot more difficult than just passing it over.
they also own Coffee Stain. I'm like, that one rings, which makes Deep Rock Galactic.
Oh. Well, I like Deep Rock Galactic. I haven't tried the Survivor one, but, you know.
Oh, and Valheim. And Satisfactory. All Coffee Stain.
Wow. It sounds like they're doing okay under there. Maybe there's like a small enough subsidiary that they're not getting hit as big as like.
Well, that's the thing is, I was so their first hit was Goat Simulator, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
They were a very small one at that point. I don't know if they went. Yeah. So. Yeah, so Goat Simulator was their first game. I remember that. That's actually why I recognize their names from Goat Simulator. Yeah.
The Goat Simulator people made Valheim and Deep Rock Galactic and Satisfactory?
Yes.
I did not know this. This is such a weird combination of games.
Isn't it?
That is so... Wow. Okay. The more you learn.
Yeah.
Well, I guess those are games... Okay, those are games... They've published Deep Rock and Valheim. Okay. And they're publishing with Ghost Ship and Iron Gate for those two. They were the ones that particularly did Goat Simulator on their own and Satisfactory on their own. Okay, that's interesting because again, like the publish first developed, it's like you as a publisher you still have a say in what's going on, but you're not as involved as the actual
True. Okay, yeah. So yeah. Anyway,
okay. Right.
That might help you on your things.
The
game
more
things.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting things going on there. I just find it's kind of an interesting collection of things to own. It's like a publisher.
Yeah. So, we got a interesting sci-fi RPG up on BackerKit. That's a mystery sci-fi RPG. Going into a little bit of that Subnautica in Other Waters. It's a deep delving mystery genre. Substratum Protocol. A portal appears at the Earth's core. The Substratum Protocol was initiated. You're basically scientists, the best brightest scientists we have left, the last hope to stem the apocalypse. So you descend into the Earth and find out what's going on with this weird portal and stuff like that. And that's the RPG adventures are based around that. Exploring, discovering, learning stuff related to the overarching storyline. They have a free preview PDF of 38 pages, if you want to check it out, aka a quick start, or a quick reference kind of rule. There is some solo play that you can do, which they have two styles of, if you want to just do it, or just standard RPG stuff, it sounds like. So, a bunch of options. And it sounds neat. Mystery-style RPGs aren't ones that we get a lot of. So
your objectives crossed out hopes and dreams. Descend into the fracture, learn about the portal, and survive to implement a solution.
Look, hopes and dreams, they aren't there anymore. Don't worry about it. You had those. Don't worry. They totally weren't lost because of all the horrible things going on. Don't worry about it.
It's a bunch of winding paths, many of them broken, many of them unsafe. They have to traverse. Yeah, I downloaded the Kickstarter and just reading what I come across as I scroll through.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting stuff. Rules and procedures. I mean, this is a kind of neat idea.
So the system that they're built on was originally for a solo RPG system, but they have developed more that it could be used with more people, it looks like. So that's why they talk about...
It's a card-based game.
Also interesting.
Yeah. Draw 2 cards from the deck. Roll the current dice of the 2 chosen skills. Compare the sum of the values of each strong card. Ace equals 1, king equals 13.
Mm-hmm.
Skill check is greater than equal to both cards. It's a good outcome.
I think it is also good because, like, as much as I don't really do solo TTRPGs, I do respect them, and there are some people that like them. So the idea that the system they built out with was built around the original thing of solo, and then they built the like multiplayer off of that, is an interesting idea for developing one.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are funded on backer kits, so 26 days left. So if this is an interesting thing,
you also need you need cards and dice. Interesting.
So yeah, you check out the free preview if you're interested in it. Yeah, requires a set of polished neutral dice and a deck of playing cards. Yep. And you have skills from a 4-sided dice to a 10-sided dice. I guess, okay, so I guess the skills, as you're better at the skills, you get bigger dice. It sounds like.
Yeah, but you also draw cards to, like, determine the skill. So the dice seems to be, like, based on, like, what your skill is. So, like, you roll, as you get better at the skill, you roll a higher dice to see a higher skill. And then you want to you roll lower dice.
And the cards have
anyone who rolled reduces the current rating of their skill die with the highest roll value by 1 level to a minimum of D4, and a tie choose which skill to reduce.
So it's probably not like a large campaign type story. This would be like sort of more miniature, smaller stories too.
Yeah, because your goal is to get higher than your skill when you draw cards. So then your dice determines what your skill is. Something like that.
Very interesting. Definitely got a lot of interesting style to the game. So
yeah, I've never thought to use both like dice and cards. Like your skill is a dice, but then you also have to like get a card. So it's like there's kind of two random things going on at the same time.
Yeah, I guess it really does help when you're doing it, particularly as a single solo player. It does add a lot more of that random chance because you're your own GM in a way, and and having that ability to transition into multiplayer is really cool with that kind of thing. So. I thought the setup was an interesting idea. Diving into the mechanics, it becomes even more interesting.
That's why it's like to download these if like they're available. Because I'm just like, oh yeah, this is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I'd seen when I read up on this a little bit before we dove in here, like, oh, it's a thing that can be solo and group play. Cool. It's got this really cool kind of like mystery setup. So it's even neater.
Yeah.
So I will link I'll link the Kickstarter for this. It's not up yet, but I will also link the Dicebreaker article that talks about it for this here, because do you like Don't Starve? I actually do. I haven't played this game in years, but there's going to be a Don't Starve board game that's done by the same people that did the Frostpunk one.
I mean, I literally saw, like, apparently, like, 2 weeks ago, they updated the game, so it's still going.
I think it's all Don't Starve Together now. Well, I don't know. The original probably...
sorry, no, you're right. It was Don't Starve Together. You're correct.
Because that's the multiplayer, but I'm sure the original game gets some stuff.
It's the multiplayer one, and you can play it solo, which is why I think they kind of gave up on it.
The original? Yeah.
It's pretty much everything the original was, but multiplayer, so...
But yeah. I've always enjoyed Don't Starve. I haven't played it in forever because it's a brutal survival game, unfortunately, in comparison to a lot of other ones.
Like, you just really have to know how it works, like, super well, so you have to have a bunch of hours into it, and even then you can still mess up or get unlucky.
Yeah. It is a very difficult one overall, and like as a lot of survival games have developed, I think it is a lesson and a template in a lot of ways, but also, like, certainly a lot more, honestly, modern survival games don't get that brutal. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I think, like, granted, it's very different still, too, but, like, even, like, 7 Days to Die isn't quite as brutal as Don't Starve, That game can be pretty brutal.
7 Days to Die isn't really that brutal.
I guess because you
respawn.
Have to
restart all over again if you
die. Oh, that's true. I guess that's why Don't Starve Together is a little better, because it is hard to completely wipe your team.
I mean, it's not that hard. It's just, you feel like you have a much better chance.
So yes, this is the group that made the Frostpunk, Diablo, Apex Legends board games, and the Dying Light one. I think we've talked about a bunch of these. I think it's been a relative mixed bag on how people like these board games and stuff like that, and how well they're adapted. So I think it's going to be, if you're interested in this and want to try this kind of thing out, and are like a fan of Don't Starve, it might be something to check out. But I would definitely see what they say on the Kickstarter, how they break down how the game's played, things like that. Because, you know, I don't think I've heard necessarily, like, super bad things about any of the board games they've done. It's just some are seen in much more positive light than others. Some are just like, they're fine. Others are like, that's pretty good. You know, that kind of thing. It's 1 to 4 players too. It'll be random things, resource gathering, preparing stuff, crafting materials. So it's very, very much so going to have mechanics that are built into the game. We're not going to see... It does have the page up, but we're not going to see it go and launch for a little bit here. So we might talk about this in the back half of the year when we know more about it. When it finally launches. Which the back half of the year is 3 months away. So within, I'd say 3 to 6 months it'll go live. But it was interesting to see that they were making a kind of roguelike survival game, aka Don't Starve, into a board game. I think it could work. Depends on how well they build it. You know, that's what I'll say about it. All right.
Maybe it'll be as brutal as the game.
That's a good question. It could perhaps be as brutal as the game. But I don't... it might be less brutal. Honestly speaking, that's not difficult to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to talk about a Kickstarter that's got a couple days to go. Adventures in the Household. So, we are going into the world of, like, the Secret World of Ariete, the Borrowers, that kind of thing, and doing a RPG based that. I don't know if we've had something like this before as an RPG. We might have. I can't recall off the top of my head. If we have had something, it hasn't been a while. So, apparently these are people that have done more materials, creators of Household and Outgunned, and it's a tiny world setting. Basically, you are like small people in a big house kind of thing. So, yes. It's... I guess that's an easy way to do this. You're tiny people in a house of, like, normal-sized people. So, you're not the normal-sized people. You're just the little people. And there was an original Household RPG, it looks like. But this might be... this is a 5e conversion of it that we're talking about here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a pretty common trope.
It is a common trope. That's why, like, the Borrowers is the main one. Secret World of Ariete. There was an old 80s, 90s cartoon. I remember... What was it called? I definitely saw it in my youth in syndication. But I remember it because also I saw, like, old, like, openings. Back in the early 2000s, I did see, like... I think I remember going over... like old openings to stuff from like cartoons from the 90s and 80s and older. The Littles, I think that's it. The Littles. Ooh.
I don't know.
That's a shout out that no one may remember. Look again. Blame like Nickelodeon for like weird syndications and stuff like that from the 90s. They did a lot of weird stuff. Anyway, I blame Nickelodeon. So certainly, you know, we've got... You still can get the old stuff for the original rules set, but a 5e conversion's not necessarily a bad idea. 5e is, well, it's a simple system. And layering anything on top of it is pretty easy and accessible to a lot of people. So I can understand having a conversion set where they're doing the entire thing. They do have 4 different little folk, fairies, boggarts, sloths, and sprites. And then 6 professions, which are basically classes with each 6 different vocations for each. So it is very unique on its own, but breaks down the same way as a lot of FIE does. So it should be familiar to those of us that are interested in it. And they do have a box of figures too, which the figures look kind of neat. If you ever want to check those out.
Are you in a normal household or a fantasy household?
Ooh. I feel like most of the time you could be fantasyful, but you're usually in a normal household. Like a normal kind of European household, but you might have fantasy abilities or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if also they will particularly make this like a one, too. Like more of fantasy world also. Good question that I don't know the answer to. Let me check the vocations. None of them particularly, like, the professions, the classes, feel necessarily magical. So maybe it is a little bit more grounded. Because it's what? Soldiers, scholars, hunters, criminals, duelists, animal handlers.
Okay.
You know. So there might be a fantastical, like, air to it, but
it
not like
be,
a...
Yeah, I mean, it could be like the... Because, I mean, it shows, like, fairies and stuff, too.
Yeah.
And, like, pictures and stuff, so I'm like, it's probably that, like, light fantasy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Low fantasy. Where it's all like, oh, yeah, there's fantastical creatures and small creatures, but you're one of them, but it's otherwise, like, not, like...
You're probably not, like, wielding massive magical powers or something like that, in general.
Yeah.
At most, we might get something more akin to, like, one of these abilities might have things more akin to, like, I would compare it to something like the Paladin. Because the Paladin only gets a lot less levels of spells and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, and those spells tend to be less powerful. So maybe a couple, like, mystical tricks for your thing, but they're not, like, going to be like, I shoot fireballs out or something like that. Again, it's just interesting. I would like to see, you know, with them being fantastical creatures, if they have a lot of that abilities. If any.
Mm-hmm.
So,
fairies, boggarts, slugs, sprites.
Yeah. It's really interesting sounding, definitely. It's very well funded. I'm guessing the original had some popularity to it. I don't remember. I may have talked about this years ago. Look, I've been doing this show for years. I can, like, if we go back to, like, your original run Worm, or back when it was just me and Joe for a while, I can't remember everything we talked about back in those days. I can remember some of them, but not everything.
In those days.
Man, grumble. It's only got 4 days left, so if you're watching this anytime within the 4 days, I'd recommend checking it out, and most likely they will have it out somewhere later on if you miss it. So, keep in mind, check it out.
And I'm going to take a small side step, because I realize it's not on the docket, to say the Pathfinder Monster Core is now out for PDF.
That's right. There wasn't really an announcement on their site, but now the PDF is out too. That's a good one to kind of mention. So we did. I think we talked about
it more 2 weeks ago, or like a week and a half ago, or something. Or 2 weeks ago, I think is what it was. But it's now available for those who did pre-order.
So here's an interesting article that I saw, and I'm sure we can find eventually. Let me see if there's a link to the actual game too. Let me just make sure to check that, because I didn't check that. I really read the article more than anything, because this is just a... here. There is an official website. So cool. And this is something that's going to be premiering... Okay. So, we've got a lot of pedigree with this one. I'm mumbling a little bit, but let me actually describe it. I don't know if you're aware of Sandland. So Sandland is a number of work by the late author Akira Toriyama, the person that did Dragon Ball. He passed away recently. It was another one of his other products he did. It was Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, and Sandland were like three of his more famous things. This one, I think, kind of falls behind the other two. Dragon Ball really blew it out of the water, you know, in a lot of his designs. But apparently, Richard Garfield is helping design a game based on this. The person who helped design Magic. So this is a weird pedigree meeting of minds that is like, it's unfortunate, you know, Akira Toriyama's passed away, but I'm going to say, I did find the website, and they talk about it. There's some stuff coming out.
So when I searched for Sandland, I noticed something else very strange. there's a video game being released
Yes.
in a month.
Yes, and an anime coming out.
So this is getting a lot of attention right now, Sandman.
Yeah.
Or Sandland.
Sandland. Yeah. This is the thing I'm saying. I'm guessing stuff was already in works that we just haven't heard about it till now. Because, like,
yeah.
you know, the timing of this with everything else, I feel like, you know, it had to have been at least in talks or works. Maybe there wasn't any, like, major designs and stuff out, but, like, if you go to that website, when they have, like, a now designing thing for, like, a page and stuff, this website's pretty well developed and stuff like that. And they've got a lot of stuff. And it's available for purchase at Gen Con 2024 for early purchase. I'm curious, like, the thing is, I haven't heard a lot about how Akira Toriyama was involved with any of these things this back end of his life, but I'm curious if he talked to Richard Garfield about any of these things, because certainly he had to have been involved with the new anime and the video game coming out to a degree. These are his products and stuff, his designs and stuff like that. So I'm curious about this thing, because it's a tie-in that it's coming out in Gen Con. It had to have been work, you know. It had to have been. So, and getting Garfield to help out is a pretty big name too. It's the big tabletop name with the big, like, manga art design person name. So it's very interesting.
Like, this had to be organized for all of these to come around at the exact same time.
Yeah. It might be an anniversary of Sandland. Honestly, like an anniversary or like something about it that made it. When did you originally come out, Sandland? It was a newer one. Originally published in 2000. But I don't know when the original manga series was done. Was probably when it's collected. Okay, so it ran in 2000. It was originally put out in 2000, then the serialized version of it.
Yeah. Well, it's not really... I mean, we're coming up on 25th, but not quite there yet.
Yeah, it is a year before the 25th anniversary. Yeah. And the ONA just started, the original net animation started coming out in March of this year. I hadn't heard about it coming out because it was coming out recently.
I mean, I guess we could count the year 2000, and it would be the 25th anniversary.
That's true. Oh, it would be. This is the 20... Oh... Because you're counting the year 2000. Because we've had this into this year. Yeah, this is the 24th year, and the year 2000 is counted on that. That's true. It's one of those tricks of numbers.
If you count
it's zero.
If you count 2000 if you count 2000 as year 1, then this would be year 25.
So it is. I think it would be the 25th anniversary because it was first released in May to August of 2000 was the original run of it. So yeah. I guess that's why we're getting the video game and the, you know, all this stuff coming out. It's 25th anniversary. But yeah, no.
This art style is so Akira Toriyama.
I mean, he has a unique art style that really shines through. You know, honestly speaking, Dragon Warrior, Chrono Trigger wouldn't be without places. Dragon Ball, his art style has just pertain to a lot of things and influence a lot of people. You know, this is some stuff coming out for another celebration of another one of his manga line. You know, another one of his works. So hey, you know, yeah, Dragon Ball overshadows so much of his stuff. Or like if we're talking video games, Dragon Quest overshadows with because a lot of his designs are just baked into the Dragon Quest series. So definitely interesting to see it all, and glad to see some more works out there. You know, he was, you know, legend, and you know, having Richard Garfield work on it's really cool. So I got a couple smaller things to back end our day before we have our discussion topic and such. An interesting looking board game that is coming out under Modiphius. They seem to be the publisher shapeshifter shipper of this by Rookery Publications, working with them. Dark Deeds. Again, there's one of those things that Modifius does. They also... Hey, we talked about a video game company that publishes stuff and creates their own stuff. Modifius does that a lot. So, Modifius, using their might, threw out another one here. The Dark Deeds. It's a Skullduggery Suspicions board game for 2 to 5 players by some industry veterans. You take the role of malicious minions in service to powerful, mysterious, and clearly evil patrons, and you perform acts of thievery, violence, and betrayal, avoiding suspicions of authorities, do-gooders, and rivals. So it's your evil minions doing stuff, basically, the board game. So sounds like a fun little excursion and attempt. So if you're interested in checking it out, definitely seems fun, and looks like a neat little game tryout for a simple. It's the thing to check out, and it's under Modifius.
That's a lot of cards.
And I debated kind of both not talking about this and talking about this one, but I decided, let's talk about it because it is something that's still coming out. We're getting another book in the Transformers role-playing game by Renegade. They have their line of, what is it? Power Rangers, is it G.I. Joe, Transformers, and My Little Pony that they've all been doing. So they've been doing a lot of like Hasbro animated RPGs. And this Enigma of Combination. I have no idea what it's going to be about. I just, it's the combo Transformers. The ones that are like, 5 different Transformers that are go into one. It's about stuff like that.
Got it.
Yeah. That was the thing. Was it like Devastator's the big one because it's the green construction vehicles. That's the word I'm looking at. That's the only one I remember of the names they mention for the rest of these. But yes, it basically allows you to be a combiner character or something that I guess you would be 5 different things and combine into one or something. It's an interesting concept, and I'm interested in how it would work. Certainly. But, yeah. Or advice is running a combiners campaign. Your 5 characters all combined to be one. That would be very Power Rangers. I assume that it could work because they've probably done a Power Rangers. They've done their Power Rangers game where, your robots combine into one giant robot that you work together to pilot. In this case, you combine together into one character that your team works to pilot. It's not much different.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of interesting that they've applied something that they had for another one, their RPGs, to this one. I just realized that. So, if you're into the...
Yeah.
I'm not against this game. I've never been. But, again, we don't get a lot from Renegade overall. And so,
yeah.
I wanted to mention it at least. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused about this. They're, separate... It's one... So are they can they transform and then split back up? Or is it,
So they say, there are several methods your character can use to join with others. They can be binary bonded or members of a Gestalt team. I don't know. There's got to be differences between that kind of thing. I assume what it's going to be is that you really, if you're running this, you would be more running a combiner campaign if you're going to have it in your group.
Yeah.
Because I assume when you're running a normal Transformers one, you're a group of characters that are all Transformers, you're your own things. This one is, you're kind of your own things too, but you can also combine into a super Transformer. Because that's kind of what Devastator was. Each the dump truck could be just a dump truck that turns into a Transformer and does stuff on their own. Or then they combine together with another 4 to become a super Transformer. So I assume if you're going to use that, that's your campaign. Yeah.
I know very little about Transformers. I know some people who are really into it, but I don't know beyond that.
I have enjoyed Transformers, but I feel like it's been a mixed bag on material over the years. And maybe it's just...
The most recent one has been those movies, which are utter trash.
like I enjoyed reruns of the original Transformers, which I think were on Sci-Fi Channel when it first came out. That was really my exposure to it in the early days, because it wasn't really around in late 80s, and I was too young at that point in time, you know. By the 90s, you got in like things like the Sci-Fi Channel and probably some seeing some stuff somewhere here and there, but it was really kind of gone out there. I really got into Transformers with the computer animated Beast Wars was really my big thing. I liked that a lot. And then they did a lot of other series of Transformers animated since then, which I feel like I've seen some here and there. It's been a mixed bag. Some are pretty good, some are not good. I've thought over the years. The movies done by Michael Bay are action trash fires.
They are action trash.
And
I mean,
some of them
are.
I was gonna say some of them are watchable, some of them aren't.
So, one of the more recent ones, I think. Oh no, that's 2011. It's still old. So Transformers: Dark Side of the Moon. The plot is that like humans go to the moon and they need to like do something there, but they don't want people to be able to see it from Earth, so they wait till the moon rotates to its dark side. The moon's tidally locked. It doesn't rotate in regards to Earth.
I wasn't going to say anything about any of that because it was bad. I'm not alive.
I just was like, I think about that every time people mention the bring to my attention the Michael Bay Transformers. I just think of that.
There was someone that had done. I'd have to find the link. They do these little like small like kind of reviews of older movies and stuff, and they have this little anime character that's really like poorly done. I'd have to find it. It's really fun. It's really good breakdowns of these movies, and like they're like they vary in quality so badly, but also anything that has Mark Wahlberg, those. Not that he's a bad actor, he's not good in the Transformer movies. So by the time we get to them, not great. There are the movies just some of them are actually watchable. They're not good movies. Yeah, that's one of the ones that's watchable. They're not great movies. They're not good Transformer movies, in the slightest. Because their messages aren't... They pretend to have Transformer messages, and then they don't actually have Transformer messages. You know, that's the thing. It's the... We don't have the spirit of the show. We have the characters and what they do. Which is...
Yeah, again,
that's not good adaptation.
Yeah, I think you explained it best by calling it action trash. It's literally made for the action. That's it.
So, having an adaptation
is fine. Sometimes there are good movies like that. I mean, like Jurassic Park 3, I would consider a decent movie because they made it just to show off dinosaurs, and I like that. It was action trash, but it was, in my opinion, fine.
I'm going to tell you,
they kind of knew that's what they were doing.
Yeah, from the original trilogy, really only the first one is an action trash.
No, I agree.
The first one, it actually had a really decent story because it was an adaptation, so it wasn't word for word. They did a good adaptation of the original novel. And still was an action movie. You know, they did a good job with the dinosaurs. The second one didn't adapt.
The first movie is obviously good. Most people would agree with that.
Second one did a terrible job adapting the subject material, which just made it stand out that they weren't doing it very well. And then it was action trash. And the third one is its own thing completely, not related to anything written by Michael Crichton.
I think that's why I think the third one is better than the second one, because it kind of is action trash, but it knows it's action trash. So it doesn't try to be anything special. Which is why I kind of like it. It doesn't, try.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm always of, this mixed emotion about it, because I'm like, I don't know if I like it better than the second one or not. Because it's like, they're just so... They're close to each other in my mind. You know, they have different problems for different... things relate... The egregious problems that they have, that I feel like, are different ones, which makes it hard to compare it. But yeah, it does have a lot of those action trash. And then the Jurassic World ones are what the fuck? We're just going to be action trash, and, I'm fine with them embracing that, We're not in it for the plot at this point in time. We're in it for the dinosaurs.
Yep. And I am fine with that because I like dinosaurs. They're cool.
But getting back to
I watched the whole YouTube video about like how the third one's like basically they knew what they were doing and it like it's like
we're just gonna do this now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
This is just what we do now. So yeah, we, if you're interested in Transformers RPG, I would not, say anything bad about it for you. It is an interesting enough thing to check out, definitely. So keep that in mind. All right. So I wanted to discuss something today because we started chatting about this during this week.
Yes.
We were talking about scaling in Pathfinder 2 in particular, but it made me think of a discussion in scaling, because scaling is something that when we talk about an RPG...
Particularly level scaling or...
level scaling is the main skill.
Power scaling.
Power scaling. Power scaling is something that happens in all RPGs. Level scaling is the most traditional, but it also happens in things more open-ended systems like Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, World of Darkness, where you spend your experience to level up certain skills. That's power scaling. Earning money to buy new weapons and cyberware. Power scaling. Mm-hmm. Unlocking new disciplines or powers in World of Darkness. That's power scaling. All of this is the same. And power scaling is an issue in every goddamn game you're going to get into.
Yes. Obviously some are worse than others. I feel like the level scaling, you call it traditional, I think the industry is very much moving away from that because it is so hard to balance around.
Here's the thing I'm going to say, though. As you say that's so hard to balance around. I think, in a way, level scaling is still better. Because when you don't have the level, it becomes open-ended, and it becomes difficult because, yes, you're probably never going to have that campaign that goes on forever. But my D&D campaign, traditionally, is going to end at 20. My Pathfinder campaign is going to end at 20, at most.
Unless you're playing 4E, in which it can end at 30, I think.
Yes, but still, that's still an ended in 4E.
Yeah.
But in my vampire game, I could technically play it forever. It's not it's not that you're going to. But certainly speaking, because there isn't a physical limit on the characters, there isn't necessarily a physical limit on the story. And the scaling can get kind of silly in ways for various abilities and powers and stuff. And yes, there are limits built into the way the characters build. But again, there are limits built into the characters build in 5e and stuff too. Oh, my stats can only go up so much really before it becomes difficult to go up. Things like that.
Yeah.
Or where does it stop mattering that my stats are going to go up that much anymore, those things.
I mean, there is this thing, and I would say, for example, 5e, I think, does have a problem at higher levels, because you have monsters who have higher difficulty classes that you have to obtain. But the only way to really increase your ability to save against them is to be proficient in the saving throw or increase your ability score. Because proficiency will go up with level, and then ability score will just you can increase your ability score. You can't be spread for everything, and you can't have everything maxed. So it's kind of like, in the end, basically a monster just has to target the party members who do not have those proficiencies, and they will more than likely succeed.
I think
now,
also... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just about to say. Now, there is the thing where it's all like, D&D 5e, you can't get too high of a DC check, so it's like you're probably still going to be fine at but you can still get up to an 18 or 19, in which case you're pretty much going to fail if you don't have good bonus.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that when we talk about scaling in 5e is very simple scaling. And I think that's the thing that's both an advantage and disadvantage, and it does help at lower levels. because at lower levels you're very much so very close together. But it's like the problems of scaling in 5e become pretty evident pretty quickly as you go up in levels, because your proficiency only goes so up. Your ability scores are probably going to only go up so much before you're really limiting it. So those numbers have a maximum value. And
you can get a plus. I think +6 is the highest proficiency you can get, and
+6 ability score.
+5 is the highest.
Oh, isn't 22 the maximum you can get? I thought.
No. So 20 is the highest you can get through investing, and then there are certain magical items which can get you a few more.
Okay.
But technically, in most campaigns, you're going to have 20 is going to be the highest you can get through ability score improvements.
But that's
so
the thing
is,
like
20 with ability score improvements.
Here's the thing, though, is like by the time you're getting to, like, honestly speaking, 10th, 12th level in that area, you're gonna have most of that number already. You might be like, your proficiency might not be up there, but you're gonna be close. But that's like by the time we're getting pushed to like 4.
Oh, yeah, proficiency. Yeah, proficiency +6, I want to say, is at 17th levels when you hit that.
Yeah, and so like you're gonna have like a +4 at that point in time, which is already halfway. And most likely, I'm not gonna lie here, whatever ability bonus you're gonna have is gonna be probably close to 20, if not by 20 by that point in time. By like 10th, 12th level, you know, in that region, that mid level. So you're only getting like 1 or 2 more bonus at all, really.
Yeah,
Maybe
+6,
you're gonna get
+6
the max.
is at 17.
Yeah.
+6 is at 17, and
so
you start with a +2.
So already, there's not going to be much scaling on your attacks or DCs after that. And here's where it breaks down, because, yeah, what do the monsters have that they're not going to be adding bonuses, because you're not really adding stuff to your AC, really, ever. Your AC is going to be pretty static, like, you know, not a lot of bonuses add, your ability scores don't go up if you add those. Maybe you get some more magic items, but the magic items don't give a lot. So, like, again, it's the thing that we see it in 5e, monsters become just tank sponges in order to survive and be a threat, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a problem with high level.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, then you got AC, so it's like, so if you do not have a good bonus to attack, you're not going to be able to do, and then you have the things where it's like the saves the monsters can do, like, that are, you know, like, you know, I just looked up like a really high level monk. Let's see.
I think I can kind of like say, like, I can give a good example of like a build that's a decent build that I built in AC. I've been playing a 10th level game. I have a 10th level character. My AC is 19. A first level character could theoretically get an AC up towards 19. That's not much of a difference then. From first to 10th level, that's not a difference, really, then. If I'm saying, like, that is our big scaling there. Certainly at 4th level, 19's kind of high. You might not get hit by a lot of things. But it's not, like, impossible to hit either. So by 19, it's not great at that point in time. And I didn't particularly, like, not have equipment or not have standard magic items, you know? I chose some defensive things. It's just that there isn't a lot of scaling there, and that's an issue. And this is just one example of it, that there's a kind of, like, issues that break down when we talk about it. Like, you know, scaling is forgiving at low levels. Scaling starts to become less giving.
Yeah,
No.
I'm trying to find it. I just remembered when creating enemies, enemies can have higher. So actually, I remembered something. So you mentioned like, oh, I thought the highest was like 22. So D&D has 2 caps. 20 is the highest you can get through standard ability score improvements for a character. So you know, if you're leveling up, you get that ability score improvement. You can't raise it above 20. 30 is the highest you can have in the game. So if you get magical items, you can get up to 30. So 30 is the cap. Like, even, like, Tiamat has, like, 30 in stats. Tarask has 30 in stats. But
isn't it also, like, if you take, like, feats or something, you can raise it a little higher than 20?
I don't think so, because I think the whole idea is that feats cannot raise it above 20. You have to use magic, or potions, or, that's what I remember, at least. Here we go.
It's hard to remember all this stuff, you know.
Proficiency bonus 30. So monsters can go up to CR 30 and get a plus 9. So in theory, the best thing you can have is a plus 19 to a stat, because that's plus 10 or plus 10 from a stat and plus 9. So plus 19 is the highest you can do.
Oh, because monster proficiencies can be higher?
Yep. Monsters can get a proficiency up to plus 9.
But still, think about that. 19. When at 10th level I had a 19 AC. It's the monster's going to hit you. I think that's why like they describe high level battles as slugfests, because you're just punching each other back and forth constantly.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I liked this is why encounter design is so important, because you can make an encounter very interesting and like without, even for a solo monster, without having to make like the monster like have 1,000 hit points.
Yeah.
There's actually like there's a whole video I saw, like, and I'll bring this up. You know, I brought it up before. I'll bring it up again. Action-oriented encounters that Matthew Koval made a whole video about a way to make them more interesting, and that's just to give them abilities. So basically, you give them like more effectively reactions and more bonus actions, so the monster can do more, and so the monster can do more, but still do a lot before dying quick.
Yeah.
So your hits still feel meaningful, but it will only last like 3 or 4 rounds. You don't have to last like 100 rounds because they just have so much HP, and they can have a lower AC, so you can feel like you hit more. In fact, he actually mentions in that video, it's better to give monster more HP than more AC, to some degree, because you also don't want to just miss all the time. And that's another thing D&D can do, is just make monsters AC really high, so you have to like use AoE spells, or only the fighter can hit them, you know?
And I think that's where we get into moving on to the other 2 scaling groups that I kind of wanted to hit, because I think there are 3 main scaling groups that stand out. Again, beyond those open-ended systems, because those open-ended systems are a lot more harder to judge scaling. It's kind of like that one you generally have to kind of like
Well, I think it's important to discuss. Yeah, I think it's important to discuss those, because that is a type of scale.
I guess we'll hit up on that one. Like, you know, if I'm playing in a Shadowrun game and you're fighting against, like, guards, they are going to have, like, you have to kind of figure out what's the standard stats a guard's going to have for, like, physical stats. Is it average? Is it a little bit above average? Are they going to have standard weapon of things? What kind of things they're going to have? You know, and those guards can appear in any of those 3, technically, you know.
Yeah, and honestly, the kind of weird non-committal scaling that Stars with a Number has is why I'm probably never going to play it again. Because it's like, oh yeah, no, your scaling won't make people too powerful. But then like, there's also like no technical limit. But then there is. But then like, it's like you only go up to 10, but it says you can go higher. But then your bonuses aren't really clarified at higher levels. But then like even at level 10, like normal guards become kind of a cakewalk. It's like, I don't know, that one just doesn't commit. I don't like that system very much.
Yeah, so it's like I don't necessarily mind those systems, but those systems, you know, your Shadowruns, your Cyberpunks, your World of Darknesses, that type of systems where, you know, I guess Besom even goes under there too. Besom's another system where like judge this Traveler. There's systems where the scaling is, you kind of have to look at your players and then judge stuff, and a lot of them don't tend, unless you're playing a specific adventure that's published, to have like a bestiary or monster thing, because you can't really build scaling unless you know your players in those games. You know, oh, are my players have a lot of combat abilities? Well, if they don't, even your standard guard, like having 3 of them, might kick their ass, you know?
Yeah. But at that point, you also got a lot of social encounters. Like, so here's the thing about World of Darkness: you actually do have caps to your abilities. Plus 5, unless you have like higher like magic stats, in which case you go to plus 10 for World of Darkness.
Vampire
so
caps it better. Yeah, Vampire caps it better. The other systems each have their own ways of capsing, but they don't actually some of them don't exist though too.
Well, yeah, no, all of them. I mean, Mage is its own thing, but no, like Werewolf, you have like your. It also depends on like I'm thinking I just know Chronicles of Darkness better, and like they have a magic. They have like a weird or a is for changeling.
I can easily tell you for the big three how the scaling works in each of those very quickly. In World of Darkness, most of the time, you're going to have up to 5 maximum in anything, including disciplines, because that is dependent on your generation as a vampire.
Yes.
So, and that includes all your stats, your attributes, all that kind of stuff. Werewolf. Now, Werewolf blows things out of the water in certain ways and does in other ways. Certainly all of your little, like, your abilities, your skills, talents, knowledges, those will max out at 5. Your attributes, naturally they'll max out at 5, but then you have the entire, I get a bunch of giant bonuses for changing forms. Where they don't have a limit is... well, Vampire, it's very hard to gain a lot of disciplines and put those disciplines up. Werewolf has this thing called, okay, I've got a rank. When I get to that rank, I can just... That's the hard thing to gain, which involves a lot of gaming. But as soon as I get there, I can just learn gifts of that rank willy-nilly, and they aren't particularly more expensive. You know, so it's sort of like, I get a billion gifts. My you know, they're not too much more expensive. Like, I have all these level 5 gifts. They are going to be more powerful than level 1 gifts. It just required me to rank up to that. So that's kind of like when you reach a new rank, your power scaling just, it doesn't ramp up, it jumps up. Kind of is the only thing.
So that's like where you kind of keep your party at the same rank if you're doing werewolf.
Which is kind of difficult, though, because werewolves have individual ways of gaining those, because it's renown, wisdom, and honor, I think it is, or something.
I think 2E handles that better.
Yeah.
Because, I say 2E. Chronicles of Darkness handles that better. Because it's the same thing, the renown and that stuff, and yeah, you have to raise it. But also, first off, it gets harder and harder to raise, and second off, you actually have to have like a certain rank in each one. So fun fact about Chronicles of Darkness. So you have to do something that tops your previous one to get it.
See, that's an interesting way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works in Chronicles. Like, that's actually what it says.
Standard Werewolf doesn't say you have to top it, but it does say you have to do something that would earn more of it, and you have to earn temporary to get a permanent rank. And yes, it is similar that you have to earn enough permanent ranks in each of those to qualify to do the full rank up. You know, so it is difficult to get to rank 5. But what I'm saying is, I've earned enough that I can go from rank 3 to rank 4. Cool, I've done that. Now all of my abilities rank up, like, I can just start learning everything super powerful and just jump up in power very quickly. You know, I don't have a transition of, like, lesser abilities in from rank 3 to rank 4 in a way, kind of. It's kind of a weird jumping. And
then, like, Chronicles of Darkness, I do like their werewolf, because it's basically just, like, you have to you have to do something that shows off your wisdom. If you want to raise your wisdom renown. You have to do something that shows off your wisdom that's more than your previous rank. So it's
that's an interesting way of saying.
Yeah, so it's just, you have to just do something more impressive than your previous one.
Because normally, like, if I'm doing a Werewolf the Apocalypse game, I would award, like, the group for completing sessions and stuff like that if they earn certain things, and then individuals might earn little bits of, like, the temporary stuff depending on their actions, and the temporaries build up to permanent and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. There's some differences between it. That does feel like it might. It's a similar system, but it feels like they might have, like, refined the system a little bit more.
Yeah. That's why I like Chronicles. Chronicles of Darkness, I really like. The only thing is that a lot of people dislike the lore more, which is why so many people go to the original.
I find the more mixed bag between the two of them, but I think also, like, certain ways they portray, like, Werewolf, I feel like they did a little bit better, but, like, also I didn't like the way, when I read up the way they did vampires as much, personally.
From what I've heard, yes, a lot of people do not like vampires.
But, like, the Werewolf, like, the thing is, like, the Werewolf and Changeling, I would compare them pretty, like, equally. The Werewolf might be a little bit better. The Changeling, I compare them equally.
Yeah, Changeling are just, in my opinion, like, so I think, here's my opinion, from what I've read. I like Werewolf better. Vampire, I've just heard is better. I don't really care very much for either, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think just Changeling are just two completely different concepts.
Yeah.
And it's hard to compare.
Yeah.
Anyway,
World Dark... Yeah. I was gonna say to finish that up, Mage is just weird because like Mage functions like magic users in Shadowrun. You basically have this overall large score, which you have to like meet to certain things. And normally, I can only get up to 5, or like Shadowrun, I can only get up to 6. Oh, but in the course of the game, I can basically spend experience points and storytell my way up to higher ranks, and that allows me to then use higher ranks in other stuff, aka spells in Shadowrun, or in World of Darkness and Mage, I can get higher ranks in spheres, which it's just fucking like getting up to a 10 in a sphere is technically impossible, sort of. Really, you're really supposed to get up to 9 because 10 is supposed to be like the predecessor of that sphere kind of thing. So like, you know.
So kind of like how rank 1 is impossible in Vampire.
Yeah, like we're like having a 10 in a discipline, you have to be K. Well, actually, technically, you have to be 3rd gen, which are really impossible in the course of a normal game of Vampire. But the thing is, 9 is more possible for Mage, which is kind of insane because rank 4 Vampire, Generation 4, is also really insane in Vampire. It's not rank 3, but it's also kind of close enough to be kind of crazy, where, like, it feels more possible in Mage, and that's just a problem in Mage. So it's like, each of them has their own problems with weird scalings and stuff like that. If you really wanted to, again, it costs a lot of experience, it would cost a lot of gameplay, but over the course of adventure, if you really wanted to focus shit like that down, I'm sure Mage could be like, I just have, like, you know, rank 9 time magic. I'm gonna time travel or some shit like that, you know, some kind of weird crap.
Fun fact, Traveler actually has a cap to how many skill points you can have.
That's nice.
You can technically have 3 and your intelligence plus your education scores. And that's the number of points you can have across all skills.
The only thing I do say is, like, just to comment on my time traveling thing, you can't travel back in time in World of Darkness. I believe someone described it best to me when we were talking about a Mage game as time flows through the World of Darkness like a river of glass shards. If you go along with it, you're probably not going to be cut about it, but as soon as you swim upstream, it's going to tear you apart.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that's scaling in more open-ended systems. It's unfortunately a lot more you have to look at it, understand the system, understand your characters in the system, and then kind of break down how to figure out scaling and where your characters can face whether actually, and it does work for like social skill challenges, more like that, even other than just combat challenges. Like, you have to know where your character's skills are. In Shadowrun, if you've got like this really great hacker man and you want to have a challenge, well, you can tell between his abilities, you know, and can set up something according to that. But you have to know that.
Yeah, so it takes a lot more personal design, which I actually kind of prefer. I actually like games that are a little bit more open-ended because you can tailor it a lot more to the player. It does make, like, well, I was about to say it could make modules harder.
Modules are okay. You might have to tweak modules. It's a lot like I've been tweaking stuff in Pathfinder 1e. It's just you have to tweak it a lot more. I think that's why, like, I've read through some Shadowrun modules. They do give you some stuff, but they also talk about places that are, like, you know, where things might be tweaked and stuff like that, necessarily to fix things. So there's like a bit of tweaking in that kind of thing. Then we have.
I would say for Travelers, I just like Travelers. It's just their practical limit, honestly, is more armor and weapons, because like to hit is always the same, so you can get hit better, but you're still not going to do more damage against something that has a lot of armor. So they have a very big technology cap, which is equipment cap, which is also restricted by things like, you know, social things where it's all like, yeah, you're not going to bring a Gatling gun into a, an enclosed spaceport, you know?
Yes.
So
probably
that's some other stuff you can do. Yeah.
Now,
so there are... other leveling systems.
Yes, well, I wanted to hit up on the old school scaling, because I think that the ultimate example of that is Pathfinder 1E. So we'll talk about that for a second, because if I compare that to D&D 3 edition, D&D 2nd edition, there's a through line between a lot of those systems that are very similar to each other. You know, very easily you can tell them that they're connected. And Pathfinder 1E is that kind of ultimate expression of it, where you're going from that level 1 to 20. It's all about the little, like, stat number bonuses, like...
Yeah, it's a lot of little bonuses that add up over time.
Yeah, and when you get to, like, you know, oh, hey, you know, your first level characters are probably not going to be doing the same thing as your 20th level characters, because, like, the DCs are going to be ridiculous. It's sort of like, now I can face DC 40s. When DC 20 was difficult for your first level characters, maybe DC 40 might be difficult for your 20th level characters, because you're effectively at least adding 20 in there. It's not quite adding 20.
In theory, because, like, you're not going to want every skill at its max. Maybe you'll have one that you put a point into every level. But,
like, I'm going to say, like, if you focus something down in Pathfinder 1E, you will have a bonus that will probably, at 20th level, in something, be at least 30. So, that most difficult of checks will at least be you rolling a 10, you know, half the time.
Yeah.
If not all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean... Yeah, so that's, like, its own thing. I mean...
It's a mess.
That Pathfinder 1E type is honestly my least favorite. I actually really don't like it. Because it's really... There's no consistency to it, and there are things that are objectively better than others, which is hard for, like, roleplay purposes, when I'm like, oh, I actually want to play a concept. Well, that concept actually isn't good enough to actually fight things at higher levels. Yeah.
It's the unfortunate thing that I certainly really agree on that one. There is a limitation onto the open-endedness of characters. It's sort of like, I want to have this combination of things. Well, yes and no, you can get that to work. Unfortunately. It's sort of like these combination of things, designing it in such a way that gets it to work through all levels of gameplay is not always easy. And I think that's the big difference too, because you certainly, in, like, these older editions, because of the problems with scaling and the problems with, like, because the scaling of the actual game is very standard, it means there are characters that can be very terrible at low levels and get better. Unfortunately, this also means, like, I gotta be honest, something like a goddamn wizard really sucks at low levels. I'm sorry, it sucks to play a wizard. Because what do you have at most? I got, like, 3 or 4 magic missiles. Then what do I have? Nothing. Cantrips kind of
crossbow.
a really... Yeah, a crossbow, basically. Which isn't a wizard thing. And that's, you know, yes, we've designed in cantrips at will and stuff like that make them that have basic attacks. And this is a concept that came in after now, which that's a different kind of improvement than scaling. I got to be honest, like that. You know, that's making basic attacks for a cast. But certainly, like,
that's one thing that I very much like about the more modern ones, where it's like you actually have cantrips which you can cast at will, which are basically just like normal attacks for other characters, and then you have your spells, which are basically your abilities, which go above and beyond that, which other characters have as well.
Thank you, D&D 4E. You introduced that stuff very much so into the zeitgeist. You really did.
Yep.
But what was I going to say? The entire thing of, let's take a fighter. Here's a problem. A fighter, in a low-level fighter, if you want to be a grapple fighter or basically like a combat maneuver fighter, you can do it. But the problem comes down to, in most cases, by the time I get to 20th level, I'm going to suck as a combat maneuver fighter.
Yeah.
Because when I'm low level, I'm fighting my size stuff and stuff that might have similar bonuses and stuff like me. My extra bonuses might be enough to, like, overwhelm them here and there. There are 2 ways that things ramp up in a lot of those games, is because they don't have magic items or a lot of abilities the same way as a character do. Size and stats. those 2 raw abilities outclass that type of character very quickly. That doesn't a lot of other character. There's a lot of other character builds other than just like grapple / combat maneuver builds that get outclassed by raw stats or size in a lot of ways. I mean, fucking certain things like hit dice of monsters, dragons, and outsiders have hit dice that are as good as multiple classes combined. You know, which says a lot about that. And that's just, these are intrinsic issues that cause, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, the scaling to break down. And that's what, like, makes high-level Pathfinder, D&D 3rd edition, 3.5, 2nd edition, such a crapshoot. Because it comes actually down to, the unfortunate thing is, it's a lot like those open-ended games we talked about, where you have to understand your team, but you mechanically can manipulate less to balance it out.
Yeah, it's more, the only thing you can really change is what monsters you throw at them, because the monsters are pre-statted. I mean, in a lot of those open-ended ones, it's all like, oh, I can just, take this guy and move that stat down 2 and the other one up 1. But in this one, it's like, what numbers do I manipulate to change things? That's not how that works, because it's built in a specific way. You can't just change this thing without affecting a couple other things, like size. Oh, no, now this is like 5 different stats you have to change,
It comes down to that thing of, like, when I'm changing size, statistics, hit dice of a monster in those older editions, certainly, I don't know the major results that are going to happen because of these changes. These are going to have an effect. What is that effect? I don't know. I can't necessarily judge the CR as well because of that, unfortunately. And that is just the deep intrinsic problem of it all in these systems. That, is, as you said exactly, I can change the monsters, but that's kind of sucks sometimes too, because thematically, maybe I want them to fight a giant dragon. Well, I take a look at the dragon, and I take a look at my players, and I'm like, well, this dragon counters everything my players do very easily. It's just going to murder them. I could take a smaller dragon. Well, the power level jumps dramatically between different sizes of dragons sometimes, That's the kind of thing like that there's really, it's hard to judge then a lot of stuff. But there are little things that you can do in these older systems to play around the stats. They get like templates of monsters, things here and there. I've played with some of them, like the rules as written for I always have the example in 3E where I added a couple of templates to a monster, and then I used the rules of advancement, which I gave it extra hit dice. The monster was more difficult than a monster they were about to fight in another room, by like twice as more difficult, and that creature should have been like 4 CR higher, according to rules as written. It didn't work. The stats didn't work. The combos didn't work. And that's just, that means the scaling, it's, unfortunately speaking, I can't say necessarily the scaling, when it breaks down, it becomes more difficult to work with it as you go to higher levels in those ones. Yeah. Now, our discussion for 2E. 2E, I haven't experimented with a lot of high-level gameplay. Like, really high-level gameplay.
I want to start experimenting with it, so I don't have a lot to say besides what the fact that I've been reading the hell out of those books.
And I have played through a pretty decent chunk. I think my example of 2E is I played through two entire adventures in an adventure path. We did, I think it was Annihilation Vaults. We got to, the 3rd adventure, a little bit into it. So we were around, like 8th, 9th level characters. Pretty decent level. Yeah. Had decent things about it. And when you were talking about an issue that, this is the entire discussion on scaling came in, that people were getting into just critting all the time.
No. The problem was they weren't critting enough. So when they said, someone said they played normally and then they played without. So Pathfinder 2E, just to explain, has this thing where basically you add your level to everything. All your checks, anything you're proficient in, you add your level to. Which basically means, and this is something they say, is you have to make DCs based on your character's current level. which is always something that annoys me because I feel like it's just like, oh no, climbing this wall is now a DC 30 because your 10th level characters, where it would have been a DC 20 if you were like 5th level.
I would tell you, in actual rules as written, things like climbing are just standard DCs. They don't add that in.
Yes,
but like I understand that there are things that are like that.
Well, it says so. To say, like, this is what I was reading. It's like, oh, you could judge that this is a slippery wall that a master level would only be able to do, so it should be this DC. Or you could say this wall was built by a 15th level caster, so then it should be based on a 15th level character. You know, it should be based on a 15 level check. And the fact that it's like you have to think about like the level of your thing is weird to me. In fact, I could probably find. Well, I
found in the old one, not the player core, because they might have changed this, but the old one for skills it just gave simple DCs depending on if you're trained, expert, master, legendary, and all that kind of stuff. But it was just standard DCs.
There are two.
But getting to those levels is a level cap. Like you can only get legendary at certain levels and stuff like that, or master at certain levels and stuff like that. Because like trained is 15, untrained's 10 for simple DCs. Mm-hmm.
Yes. You know. So those are simple DCs. So simple DCs are their own thing. Those are for like basic. So there's like a rule for that. These are for simple DCs are for pretty much anyone would have a decent chance at. Then level-based DCs are things that are supposed to be based on like to challenge your party.
Okay.
So anyone of that proficiency should have a decent chance at so an untrained person DC 10. That's why it's DC 10. Anyone should have a moderate chance to succeed. Trained, anyone with who's trained should have a moderate chance of succeeding at DC 15. Anyone who's expert should have a moderate chance of, But then DCs by level are separate, so it's all like, and
like most times I encountered DC. This is what I'm gonna say here. Having gone through those adventures, most times when we encountered DCs by level stuff, it was related to like monsters and stuff like that, or traps and things like that. It wasn't related to like normal rolls.
Let me read this one line.
Okay.
For example, you might determine that a wall in a high-level dungeon was constructed of smooth metal and is hard to climb. You could simply say only someone with a master proficiency could climb and use the simple DC of 30. Or you might decide that the 15th level villain who created the dungeon crafted the wall and used the 15th level DC of 34. Either approach is reasonable.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you can do either approach there. You can keep the simple DCs, or you could customize it to the level of the villain or something like that.
Or player, or monster.
Yeah. So you could customize it around there. I gotta be honest, I would just use simple DCs. You know.
I agree. But I mean, I just think it adds. But my problem that I was like wondering is that like, okay, so these are designed to scale with your players. So like, you can get expert when you start. You can get master at later levels and legendary at later levels.
Yeah. You actually only start with trained. I don't think you can get expert.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Expert is early though. It's like level. I want to say like 6.
It would be level 6.
7.
I think it was around level 6 or 7. And the thing is, for an expert, you got 3 plus your level bonus to that skill, which would be 10, we'll say. Which would mean that you would have a 50-50 chance of rolling an expert DC at your initial level of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So
it's not too bad. It's like a half chance of you're reaching that level of skill. But again, like, fucking leveling up a lot of skills is hard.
I went because I was curious because I don't know why I find that kind of system a little bit meh. Like I prefer 5e, which is where like skill checks and stuff they get harder, but not like a ton harder. You know, and that's what we're talking about. And they do have an optional rule. Where is that optional rule? Building game, variant rules, and proficiency without level. So it changes things dramatically.
Sure.
According to this, like, so they have the simple DCs of 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 instead of 10, 15, 20, 30, 40. Which is interesting. So basically, the later ends have a lot less bonuses. So we're going to go based on the numbers like that. And then you'd only use simple DCs instead of level DCs.
Interesting.
Where the problem comes in, though, is the idea of critting. Because there are a lot of effects in 2E where critting is important.
Yeah.
And the difference between, and since you only add your level, and I think this is where the critting comes in, since you only add your level to things that you are at least trained in, although saves you're always at least trained in, to be fair.
You're always at least lowest level. The thing is, you're also, most classes, they also even have unarmored, you know, like if you're a wizard, you get unarmed trained, meaning you add your level if you're not wearing armor, you know.
Yeah.
So most of your defenses normally would just add your level to them.
Yeah. But I still think where the thing comes in is more that the expert plus level, I don't know. Like, I mean, so this is what I read online, is that people said, because like I said, I haven't done a lot of playtesting, I haven't played the game, I haven't played 2E ever. I want to, though. It looks, I actually think it looks better, but I would love to play it with this, which is where this all came up. So I like the idea of this, but someone said that critting, the lower critting, because, and this is something they actually say, in this, you will have less crits, is basically, they say that.
For having the optional rule?
In the optional rule, they say you will crit less. I'm trying, let me see if I can find
it. I can understand why, though.
Yeah. Okay, so why? I'm kind of a little bit curious.
The way that crits work in Pathfinder is, first off, 2E particular, is there are different levels of critical success.
Well, yes. So, you can. Well, there's critical failures and critical successes. If you score 10 below, it's a critical failure. Between 9 and 0, or sort of between 9 and -1, basically, are so -9 to -1 is a failure. Then 0 to 10 or to 9 is a success, and then 10 plus is a critical success.
Also, the dice rolls do matter too, because if you would roll a 1, it drops.
20 and a 1,
drop and raise them. Yeah, so those do make a difference. But yes, by raising one degree in any direction.
And
so exceeding something.
Level.
So that's the thing is.
Continue.
If we consider, if we take the example we gave of okay, I have just without ability score. I'm gonna say this, without ability score. If my ability score to whatever it was, and I'm a expert at it, I'm rolling an expert DC 20, I would have plus 10 at level 7.
Yeah.
I would have to roll a 10, meaning to critical it, I'd either have, if it's something that can be critical, I'd either have to roll a 20, or I'd have to roll 20 to get it, you know? This is not beholden of ability score. I'm going to admit here, Pathfinder ability scores go up pretty well. So you getting a 3 or 4 bonus to that, if it's one that you're focusing on, not too difficult. I think I got a charisma, I was up to 20 or something, which is a 5 bonus. That's a big difference. Yeah. You know, and if I'm rolling that, it means I have to roll a 15 to crit on something based around my charisma when I'm trained in it like that for the basic DC. And I think that's the thing is, when it comes to stuff you're good at, you still critical at it. The problem is, if you are not good at it, it's not going to happen. I think that's where it is. A lot of abilities that you have become deficiency worse as you go on. Because you do have a lot of skills, but really when you look at building a character, especially at the high levels, really are going to get 1 or 2 skills to master level. Meaning that you're not going to have many... And the thing is, those 1 or 2 skills, you might not have a lot at those, at a legendary at 20th level, you might not have any at master. You might have maybe 1 more at expert, and just a bunch of trained then. Those trained ones aren't going to get those DCs. You know, even if you're adding your level to them, those little bonuses mean a lot to not even being successful, but critically, definitely. And I think that's things that you aren't... I think that's the deficiency that I definitely can point out in 2nd edition is it focuses you very heavily as you go higher level. Granted, you choose that focus, but it does focus you into like certain things a lot more, in a lot of ways.
Now, combat, and I think this is where the crediting really comes in, is fighting larger groups of slower enemies are very much on par with you. Like, they actually adjust. They do have a creature XP adjustment for like building, because like you basically,
I think I was saying this on the day we were talking. If I'm in Pathfinder First Edition, okay, let's take Crimson Queen. I could, with your characters at 8th level now, right? I could throw you against a large group of CR3s, and they could still be a threat. Granted, I might have tweaked some things, like give them slightly better equipment. Oh, you know, their stats are slightly better some way or something like that, that they could actually, like, maybe hit you and Joe. But most of the time they could focus down on the weaker parts of your team to be a threat, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In 2E, that 5 difference in level definitely breaks scaling.
Yeah.
Really, you
and this
couldn't
is where I was all like, and I know this wouldn't work, but it's something I was considering until like I looked at how this worked. I thought it'd be interesting to run a adventure path without the scaling. I don't think that would work.
I think the thing is, yeah, the removing the scaling both has advantages and disadvantages. Like, you can do it. It would make those combats be possible, but again, it does kind of change the dynamic in a lot of ways, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that I'm not like against trying it out, but I would probably want to like do like a very simple, like maybe like one shot or something, testing around with it, you know, particularly. But I think also at different levels and different when you hit those milestones of like expert, master, legendary, that kind of stuff, I think that would make a big difference in how they work too. You know,
they'd be a lot higher of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, anyway, to get back onto like the opinions or kind of how they different ones work. I wouldn't really say opinions because I think they all work in their own way for what they're used for.
Yeah.
The scaling by level, where it's like everything is at your level, or you should be fighting things like. I mean, that's so 2E is different than like the other ones. Yeah, I do agree that there are kind of like so there are basically 4 different scalings. There's what I was looking for to make Pathfinder into like 5E, where it's like there's level scaling, but it's not significant. So that's 5E and Pathfinder 2E with this.
Yeah, that's I would call that slight scaling. Maybe we'll call that one.
Yeah, and then you've got just number crunch scaling. I don't know what to call Pathfinder 1E and like D&D 3.5 and 3.
That would be.
Let's call it let's call it soft scaling because soft scaling because it's like it scales, but it's kind of hard to gauge.
I would call that hard scaling because it involves a lot more numbers. Because 2E, it does involve your level, but it's a very simple scaling in comparison. Actually, that's the thing about 2E is 2E has very few bonuses beyond your level and your training.
Yes.
And that's the difference.
Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
While 1E has like I'm adding 5 different numbers from 5 different sources to this one. That's why I think it's soft scaling, hard scaling, and that's 2E is an interesting one because it's just straight level scaling. I would call that one. And then you've got open scaling, which is your World of Darkness is Shadowrun. I think those are the 4 main types of scaling you tend to get. I think the level scaling is like a derivative of hard scaling. That's like a one that I'm sure I've seen that before somewhere. I just couldn't place it on top of my mind the way that Pathfinder 2E does it. But it is a rarer one to do.
There are ones like that. Like I consider, there are definitely other ones like that.
I think
Pathfinder is the only one I've seen that's like, Pathfinder 2E is the only one I've seen where it's like so concrete.
I think I've seen one before like that, but it's very rare.
Yeah,
it's not a scaling that people use a lot. That type, I think.
Yeah, and it's probably for the reason that I don't like it, where it's just like, so basically, I mean, you can literally just change a creature effectively by changing its level, and now it's on par with the party. Not really. You have to change some other things, but like, in theory, do that.
In theory, changing the level of a creature would make it more difficult in a way. But the thing is, a lot of creatures are built around a certain concept of leveling, because a lot of creatures, traditionally, their levels are based around their hit dice. The exact same thing that a lot of players are.
Yeah, it's not technically true, which is why Pathfinder really only suggests increasing their power level by +1 or -1.
Yeah.
2E does. They have that whole system for it now. I mean, they technically had it before.
I think they had it before, but they included it in
their Monster Core.
Yeah. Again, I don't recall it being in the Monster Core. It could have been somewhere that I just didn't look or something. I don't remember how thorough I was in the original bestiary for it, for comparison to Monster Core. I think I think what we got is actually 3 main categories, and yes, the level scaling is a subcategory of hard scaling, and we were probably going to have a couple more subcategories under all of these things here.
Yeah.
But fucking don't get me started, because I could not quote it completely. The scaling in Earth Dawn is just fucking weird, and it's a type of open scaling. But it's different than all the other ones, because it's a dice scaling. If you ever want to look up Earth Dawn dice scaling, it's as you gain ranks and stuff, you get larger dice to roll.
Yeah.
So if you're 20th rank, you're rolling 2d20, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's fucking Earth Dawn scaling. It's so weird.
So Mark Miller Traveler, aka the original person who made Traveler in the first place. He actually still is making it. There's a 5e now that's being updated right now. So I should clarify, when I say Traveler, I'm thinking Mongoose Traveler.
Yeah.
Mark Miller Traveler is, they have a system where the difficulty class, so you know how Traveler has the average, difficult, or easy, so in Mark Miller Traveler, that's how many D6s you roll. And your skill is the number you're trying to get below. So basically, it's more that you have a higher chance at the higher skill levels, but even a bunch of dice, you can still roll horribly. It's interesting. But yeah, this is more how the skill's done, which is interesting. Yeah.
I thought of a dice system that we didn't talk about today that uses a scaling that's very different.
Yeah, technically these are dice systems, which skill systems, which aren't what we're talking about.
Dice and skill systems are oftentimes intrinsically connected to the scaling of the game and their stuff.
They are.
The 2d20 system that Modiphius does for things like Star Trek, they don't really scale up a lot. You do gain milestones, but traditionally, you don't gain a lot of numbers in your core things, because they have very defined maximums that, honestly speaking, most of the time when I'm if I'm building an engineer, I'm either close to or at my maximum for a lot of these things. I'm not going to be increasing it. And the open-ended nature of it, especially with your attributes versus your disciplines, okay, I can raise some other disciplines up in here. But a lot of times you either move things around at certain milestones, or you get those milestones where you do get a bonus, I'd put it in somewhere else. And your attributes, they're kind of set in stone a little bit too. So it's sort of you don't really scale up a lot. Here and there you do learn a few things, but it's most of the time those talents you might pick up new ones of, or stuff like that they've got, where to give you unique abilities, or specializations in new things that you've learned, which are very interesting.
Yeah. Traveler rules as written, or sorry, I should say, as it's intended, you can't increase your attributes. I generally, though, do prefer the point buy system, or not the point buy, the experience leveling system, alternate rules, which does allow you to increase your attributes. But technically, rules as written, you can't increase your attributes after character creation for Traveler. So there's arguments there too.
But that is technically got a scaling to it, but it's a scaling that I think I think I would call it a pretty much a non-growth scaling.
Yeah, it's kind of more it's a very slight, very low slope linear scaling.
Yeah, that really, technically speaking, it's just you're maybe becoming a slightly more specialized in what you get, and maybe adding a little of being able to help others with your other things too. So it's it's unique that there are some systems like that are a bit more. And I wanted to also say I did find the action step table for Earth Dawn, where step 1 is a D4 minus 2, and step 40 is 2D20, a D12, a D10, and a D8. That is a very big difference between those two. Fucking Earth Dawn. Oh, yeah. If you ever want to look up the Earth Dawn dice steps, that is a scaling that I could not begin to explain that to you. I know it's like you add two things together to figure out your step, and it's like weird, and God, just live with that if you ever look it up. Anyway. Yeah. There are outliers. I think like the 2D20 systems that Modiphius does are a little bit of an outlier, kind of. I couldn't handle down all of them are basically the same, but Star Trek's a good example of one that really doesn't have a lot of like flex in it. Very, very rigid scaling. But I think it's what it is you as a person playing or running a game have to realize when you are dealing with this system, you are dealing with the scaling in the system. And, you know, especially on the GM side, you will get to a certain point in time where whether or not you continue the game with leveling, if you are giving power to your players, you still want to give them that kind of stuff, power upgrades, levels, but maybe start thinking about ending your game because you've kind of reached the maximum crescendo of what works with it. You know, it's kind of like, I think we've talked about 5e. The balance of 5e kind of hits at that like kind of 10th level around there a lot. Yeah, Pathfinder 1e, I think 15 is kind of where the maximum is before it starts really breaking down. I don't know about 2e. But like
2e is supposedly stable all the way through. I've heard very good things about it in that sense.
I guess with its scaling, as long as you are facing things of your level, it tends to just not break down that way, you know.
Yeah, because it's pretty much just add your level to things, I can see that being very easy to balance. And, like, to be fair, though, Pathfinder also has a lot of little bonuses, so, like, when you get a lot, so, like, you have to, like, work with other people to stack a bunch of bonuses on a monster to lower its stats enough to hit it, you know? It's, like, that's kind of how, you know, so, like, a lot of that is very, because it's so linear, it's just addition, and that's a lot more easy to balance than, like, multiplication systems. Because I think that's the problem with, like, yeah. I think 5e is that, or not 5e, Pathfinder 1e, there we go, my brain finally clicked that, is that it's like, you can have one player who has an AC of 5 and another player who has an AC of 50, you know, not quite, but, like, you know, and it's like, how do you balance that?
You don't? Maybe you do? I don't know sometimes.
Yeah, it's like at the higher levels, it's like one person is, you generally have players who are focusing very heavily into one area, and other players who are focusing very heavily into another area. Meaning they're very different, and one monster which could kill one player could, like, just, you know, tickle another. So it's like, you know, and I know it's party dynamics and how, like, you're supposed to do stuff, but, you know, it can still cause balancing issues if you get really high.
I think the thing is, games that are more balanced also means that your teams can be less balanced. That's why, like, 5e, it has you know, again, for different reasons. It, again, what we kind of talked about earlier, it just kind of like becomes a kind of beat 'em up, sock 'em up. It's not because of party dynamic that you really have problems with scaling and stuff like that. But something like Pathfinder, where the numbers mean a lot more, team dynamic actually can have a huge effect, you know, on scaling.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, I feel like 5e is more of a design flaw because, I mean, if you really read through a lot of the abilities, you don't get a lot at later levels, like, in the traditional 5e. That's why I'm actually looking forward to the update. Because, like, if you look at it, it's like monks, it's like they get, like, oh, I now don't age at level 15. Oh, and, like, you know, you don't get a lot at higher levels, but then monsters keep getting stronger, really by only adding HP. And then, like, the monsters themselves don't get a lot, like, and then spells get really crazy without really having any other, like, effects. So it's more of a design issue at later levels, where it's like, it wasn't designed for higher levels. Hopefully they fix that in their new edition. I have high hopes for it, though. I actually think they will do it.
It sounds like they've done a little bit of work to rebalance things, at least. Even if it's not perfect, if it is a little bit better, I think it'll be good. You know, just having some improvements here, you know, that's good. And
because that's the thing I've heard from like experienced GMs have said that like it really doesn't take a lot to rebalance 5e at higher levels. You just have to put in a little bit of work.
Yeah, I can agree with that. There, you know, it's the thing of like, if you put in the work for it, you can do it. But it's kind of like that entire thing for me is like, I don't mind putting in some work. I just don't want to put in a lot of work. So it's just kind of like, it gets like, 5e just gets a little annoying for me for trying to balance that out.
I spend too much time on my games. So I'm down putting in the extra elbow grease.
Look, you know, I especially after goddamn trying to figure out the God, Children of Wrath ruined my idea for scaling for 5e completely, because when I attempted to like just use standard monsters of their level, it just kicked their fucking ass so easily.
Yeah. And
I'm like,
that's really the thing is like
early
5e. Early 5e is that thing where it's like you don't. Yeah, early 5e is that thing where it's like you don't actually have to have a balanced party. Later 5e, you kind of do.
We lost a worm. We lost a worm.
Am I good?
And I can hear you. You said you do.
Okay.
Yeah, now you're fully back.
That was a very minor thing. I've actually. Anyway,
that's not too bad.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like one of the biggest flaws of 5e is monster design at later levels. They're just not well balanced for the way characters work.
And as you said it, like as we get to those higher levels, the balancing of the team becomes more important. Unfortunately, that at low level, you can have 5 bards and still work for early level for a team, you know. But maybe by 10th level, that becomes less viable. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Against certain enemies, because the enemies become more specialized, so you need to have people who can deal with those specializations and overcome those resistances, and
all bards might not do that.
Yep.
all bards might do that, because bards are very versatile. But, like, all rogues
to be fair,
certainly
yes,
wouldn't.
You can... Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because, yeah, at that point you can have a college lore bard who's picked up some, stuff for, from mage or from
wizards or something.
Wizard, that's the word.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the College of Valor, which can do swashbuckling stuff, and then a swashbuckler who can. Yeah, you can actually have a decently.
all bards is the one that like might work, but for my joke, but like all
barbarians.
Oh, all barbarians, that would not work. Oh my god, that we can smash stuff, or we can smash stuff, or we can smash stuff. You know what? I kind of want to smash stuff.
Yeah. I don't want to run that party. That doesn't sound like fun as a GM.
Let's just hit it. It's all barbarians. At least the all rogues, you can have like at least one that's like, I'm an arcane trickster. I can maybe help out here.
Yeah. Oh wait, swashbuckling is a rogue. Yeah, you can have one swashbuckler who can. Fight.
You again. There's a couple of alls that might work together. Maybe.
And others that won't.
Yeah.
Like all wizards would actually be very difficult as well, because like you have no one who can take a hit.
No, God, no. Yeah. all clerics. Unfortunately, even if 5e's introduced it, they just don't have a lot of offensive power. It's like we're very defensive.
Actually, I feel like all clerics would work because like you have the heals. You literally will never have.
Oh, that's right. They never die. It would. Oh my god! It would work It would work because it would be attrition. There would be no dying. Fucking. Oh my god.
I think that would work just from the
attrition. Like a life domain, and like I would playing a Twilight domain in a game. The Twilight domain just is like, oh well, we'll just keep healing, getting temporary hit points, and you're healing them. Yep. We're just living forever. It would be the worst though, because it would just be a battle of attrition for every battle. It's like, we're ready to battle things. Attrition time.
Yeah, It wouldn't be fun, but it would work.
You're right. God. Anyway, we should quickly go over our week in tabletop and then end for the day. We've kind of we went a little longer than I thought this topic would, but we did do a deeper dive than I thought on scaling. And it was a good talk on it, kind of defining it a little bit there.
Yeah.
And why it's important.
We find it. We kind of went. Yeah. Why it's important.
It's important to understand it in your game because it's going to come up for both players and GMs. Person running it a lot more, but even players have to deal with goddamn scaling. So
yeah, understanding
it's good. And did you do anything on Sunday?
No.
Okay. I don't. How about last Saturday?
No. The only thing I've done this week is Crimson Queen.
Okay. I ended up doing a bunch of tabletop this week. Then I'll let you talk about Crimson Queen then. On Monday, I did a little bit more of River's game where we kind of got down the what it means to be in school, and then we went to was it like a second? It was a special event at the school, the magic school, which was interesting, and also idiot sports people tried to recruit me to their team, and I just shook my head. It was basically a bunch of the paladins at the school decided that they're going to like come up with a way that they. It's basically they smite a ball in order to hit it at people, and so, it's a lot more than throwing a ball into someone's head, because you're using magical power behind it. So they've got a lot of concussions. They're nice people, but they really need to stop playing this sport. I felt bad for them. They're like, "You're a paladin, I'll recruit you." I'm like, you guys are stupid. But that was that. So we had a lot of that kind of... So basically, intro stuff. Crimson Queen. We had downtime.
Yes. It was very short. Also, I don't think you noticed me freeze there for a second because you're.
I was looking over and I'm like, I think for a second I side-eyed because I saw the back end of it and I'm like, are you? Oh no, you're moving. I'm like, okay. So yeah, it's good to know you were freezing and I wasn't losing my mind.
You are losing your mind. I did freeze for a second.
Okay. Because I was just like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Crimson Queen. We had downtime. Had a bunch of talks. Nothing really major happened. I mean. Yeah,
switch the character for now.
Yeah, switch the character temporarily, more because of a character just felt like it would be their character's responsibility to get their mom.
I'm going to tell you, the reasoning behind Momo actually switching the character, which is not something really necessarily high, is, for one, Wizard still kind of sucks at 8th level. So skipping some level until Wizard's a little bit better might be better for Momo.
That's fair.
Because getting honestly, frustrated,
Wizards...
like
spellcasters in 1E are weird. It's kind of why I didn't want to play one.
They are difficult to work with in certain ways, and unfortunately, I feel like I can't say that Momo's been playing the wizard wrong, but it's just an unfortunate thing that there's a lot of kind of specializations that make them more usable, and then it's been a lot of like bad checks, rolling badly, a lot of saves.
Terribly, yeah.
And I've been rolling really great for a lot of saves and stuff like that, which are not good. I'm gonna tell you, like, it's the easiest wizard to play is still the goddamn evocation / blaster wizard. Unfortunately, even in 1E, it's like.
I mean, and that's the thing. He's been trying to play like a buff debuff wizard. No, he's been trying to play a debuff wizard mostly.
Well, that's a necromancer. That's trying to be a debuff, but you're not specializing in creating undead. Isn't a bad build. It's just unfortunately that there's a lot of save or suck kind of things in there.
Yeah, no, and that's really what it is. Wizard in Pathfinder 1E has a lot of save or suck. I mean, at least buffing like that clerics do more of is at least you don't have to make saves.
So. We will see the character again. It's just taking a break from that character, and it is an excuse if there is some retraining that needs to be done. We can discuss that in the future.
My character got a new ability. Well, technically my character retrained their class, so that way I can actually be viable, because I realized my original build... I had an original idea. It didn't work out. This is actually one of the things we talked about. It's like... not all builds are viable, and I realized I was going to get outpaced real fast, so I had to So I came up with 3 ideas.
I can pull out of the box the most unviable class on its own. The fucking Armor Magus. You look at that thing, and it seems like a great idea. It's not. It requires so much work to make it viable.
I read a whole article that someone wrote up about the shifter, and like what's good and what's bad. Technically, the Dragon Shifter, worst one.
I didn't know that. So the thing is, I was vaguely familiar with shifters before you started playing.
Actually, no. Sorry, second to worst one. The worst one is the Slime Shifter.
Ooh.
The Ooze Shifter. There's an Ooze Shifter. But yeah, the reason is you get too many things at too late of a level.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And you lose, and your bonuses just aren't super great. Like you get elemental resistance, you get the scent ability, and that's pretty much all you get until like 9th level.
Yeah, I can see that in Dragon Blood, since it pushes a lot of stuff off till 9th level. It's like if you came in at a 9th level character, I can see or like close to that, I can see Dragon Blood Shifter maybe working. But yeah. Well, that's the thing is, it's unfortunate that a lot of the shape-changing powers, they're not necessarily the most balanced a lot of times in a lot of ways, and that's a thing that's like unfortunate for like druids a lot too. They have some. Fortunately, they have other things to balance it out, spells and other abilities that they don't have to rely on their wild shape, but where it's like the only thing you have to a degree.
Yeah. And that's why it's all like delaying pretty much the only part of the class that actually makes you do anything until 9th level is brutal. And there were ways I could actually build it. I actually figured out a way to build into it to work. But I went through options and asked the group, and they pointed me towards this one. Because that would have also, as I learned, been a grapple build, which, as you pointed out earlier today, is not good. The way I was planning to rework it was into a grapple build.
I'll tell you here, this adventure grapple build maybe work, but I have not looked at how many basically monster enemies you get later on. Because as soon as you get into an adventure that has a lot of monster enemies tend to be really hard to do anything CMB related, unless you are super specialized. Like I made a bluff build in a Pathfinder. Mm-hmm. It took me so much to make my bluff, because that was a feint build. A feint build uses bluff, which is a skill. That's a lot easier to ramp up there than your goddamn CM combat maneuver bonus, because you can be trained at it and have your level and skill points. Where fighter might have maximum, but like
I mean, there were ways to do it. Like I was gonna get, because the dragon can get bigger, because you start at medium, and then at level 14 you get you become a large dragon.
Yeah.
And then you would have and then there's an ability you can get called Enhanced Form, I think, or Feat, which would allow you to count as one size bigger for CMB and CMD. So I would have counted as huge for my combat maneuver bonus.
That's pretty good, though. That does give a really big bonus, having that difference.
Yeah. So that was the thing I was going to do if I wanted to actually become a dragon, which was my original build concept. But I decided to switch it up, and now I'm going to be more of just someone who fights dragon-like.
It's also the thing that I think, like,
natural weapon.
Out of all the things, parts. Like, honestly, unfortunately, a lot of combat maneuvers aren't, like, they're okay, but they're not, like, super useful.
You have to invest so much to make any of them viable.
Sort of like, I'm sorry, I'm investing into bull rushing. It's not great. Bull rushing is okay, It's not great. Disarming, okay. That can be helpful against things that use weapons.
Yeah.
Tripping, can it be tripped?
Basically, anything that has more than anything that has multiple legs can't really be tripped.
Yeah.
And that's basically any beast. So again, you're looking at humanoids.
Grappling.
So yeah, CMB.
Yeah, but as soon as you're like, even if I'm grappling a dragon, you know what the dragon can just do? Use all its natural attacks against you still.
Yep.
You know.
I mean, that was going to be me. I was going to grapple it and then use all my natural attacks as a dragon. But
that is why that build is theoretically viable, but I understand why they say it's pretty low there in the ones you want to choose, because you really do have to be pretty high level before it gets there. Yeah. Unfortunately.
The other option I decided not going to was to rebuild into basically just super AC, which I could have done, but it would have taken. But I don't think I could have gotten it high enough to be considered hyper tank. With the current build I had, so just attacking 1,000 times is basically going to be my build, which is fine.
That's pretty good. Yeah, hyper tanks are hard to build. You know, the only one I managed to ever successfully build was a hyper dodge tank. But again, that was the one that fainted everybody, because I was able to do those two different things, because they're one's skill based, the other is actually AC based. And you know what I did? I did no damage. I just basically made everybody else be able to murder everybody, because I just fainted them with greater feint. And I'm like, you're denied your dex bonus until the end of next turn. Everybody dogpile on this thing. There you go. Hey, that's my job. Yeah. And stand in front where people are like, huh, you want to hit me? Nope. Huh? Can't hit me, bitch.
So now I'm going to have a decent AC and attack a lot. So
that's not bad.
What I'm gonna be. So jump into the middle. Yeah, and then so basically I'm going to get Pounce at level 13. Yes.
Yeah, jump in there.
Somewhere around there.
Take some hits, but not all the hits, and then do a lot of attacks.
Yeah.
It's like
basically,
you might not do a lot of you'll do decent damage, but maybe not a huge amount of damage per attack.
I'm not actually going to do as much damage as Joe, because Joe's going to hit hard. I'm going to tank and hit a lot of things a little bit.
You know, it's kind of like, you know, it's the balance of also then you have Tavel, who would be really sucky up in front of people, but Tavel does a lot of damage because it's just a lot of ranged attacks. The Archer build is good that way.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to be able to cause the shaken condition on people who I crit.
That's nice.
By the way,
that's a good one.
So that's why a lot of attacks is good, because more chance to crit by attacking a lot.
I did also have a game on Thursday where we are. I think we're kind of reaching. We're not reaching the end of the story necessarily, but it sounds like, because we are playing in that one a high level 5e game, it has been a lot more difficult to write for Momo, who's been working a lot, you know. So they've managed. Yeah, they've managed, but again, we basically finished off this dungeon where people was making constructs for the villains, and we've defeated the people. So the evil villains we've been fighting against shouldn't have any more construct army being added to them. But we also learned that they had a magic item that was basically Terminatoring some of their robots and giving them flesh suits, which is disturbing. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's a thing. We don't have to worry about, fake generic people that are really, horrible Terminators out there. Oh, wait, now, we took it. Yeah, they're synths, basically. We took it, though, now, and Lightning gave, they had a summon that they gave it a flesh suit, so now it was it looked like a person instead of, a weird, spirit creature. Semi-solid spirit creatures, gross. But apparently when you desummon it, it just kind of slops down there, the skin, because it just created on top of it. So it's oh, that's just disturbing. You desummoned your thing, and this pile of flesh is left over. So yeah, it was interesting. It was fun. It was very combat-y, that session, at least, though. And then I did do last night. Me and Joe managed to grab Blaze and catch up a little bit, and we played Guillotine for a couple of rounds, which I actually won both of them. The first one, I honestly was just running away with the game. You know, I had all the luck and was basically set in stone pretty early. And then the second game, I managed to do a maneuver which had gotten me into the last minute really good shape. And then Joe drew the card, which is End the Day, and it was our last day. meaning we couldn't play out the rest of the day. Because sometimes, you know, it's just like, well, that's done then. We're done. Score. I won by a couple of points. It wasn't a lot. Joe had been in the head, and I managed to pull ahead. You know, with my maneuver, which, if you don't know guillotine, you collect basically heads. It's the French Revolution, and some of them are worth negative points. I basically switched something that was negative points to me to positive points, and that was enough of a point swing to win. Okay. That was our week. I think we should end it here. We've run nearly 3 hours today because we had such a deep conversation.
Yeah.
It was a big one.
Yeah.
I want to go
I didn't
get
realize
dinner.
there's one leveling system we didn't consider, but I'll just touch on that briefly. Ones that don't level, which are usually just like really short campaigns that like.
Yeah, that's true.
Like My Name Is John and ones that just. But
those are usually
one.
Those are usually either not campaigns or traditionally like one session things.
Yeah.
Or maybe like 1 or 2 sessions or something. Yeah. So
those
those do
do
exist.
My brain realized that is technically one that exists.
Yeah, non-scaling. That is one that exists. We definitely should mention that one. You know, short adventures / single session ones that are non-scaling. All right, everybody. That is a good one to add in, and we'll save. I think we should get going. Thank you, Worm, for joining me. Why don't you give your shout out?
Oh yeah, I'm DiamondWyrm. You can find me on twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or at DiamondWyrm on Twitter or at or DiamondWyrm on Blue Sky. I don't know how that one works. I'll be streaming tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. PST. PD.
Okay. Myself, quick shout out to Dracovin. I stream here basically 6 days a week. If you want to see the main tabletop stuff, this show's every Saturday at 6 p.m. If you want to catch us earlier, Crimson Queen, we mentioned it. It's at 9 p.m. EST. It's on my channel here, so check that out. Pathfinder First Edition. I also do other Pathfinder I do other tabletop stuff. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, with Saturdays the backup day if I have family doing anything. I do gaming streams Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. I also have Discord, Twitter linked down below. For gaming stuff, if you want to check that out, because we are over here on Twitch too. Yeah, I'm doing a Metroid Fusion randomizer on Mondays, and I've been doing Elden Ring on Wednesdays and Fridays. Fridays will be after the tabletop stuff. Okay, there's the quick shout out. I'm going to also have us both get going. Farewell for now. It's been a long one. Goodbye.